We'll see. Yeah. Give you some water real quick. Okay, so I did this like over a month ago. It was part one and everything, and I don't know. I wanted to revisit this. I thought it was very important. This from Area 52. Shout out to him. Heard a story before. Leaked audio of alien being speaking through pilot. Again, me doing this fair use, stuff like that. I have my own experiences with UFOs, ET stuff, paranormal stuff, all kinds of different paranormal stuff. Angels, demons, and near-death experiences, stuff like that. So, transformative in every way. Shout out again to Area 52. I just think that it's important to go back over some of this here. This is in a half hour. Let's see.
Insane case here. Here's Raphael's story, by the way. And we're going to get into some of the things that were said.
Yeah, this is Rafael Pacheco Perez. Rafael Pacheco Perez story here, alien channeling, where an ET took over pilot's body and radioed in a message, for humanity, stuff like that and everything.
Because the voice that came through Raphael also referred to Raphael as a microphone, which is super bizarre and dark and weird. There's just so much to unpack in a story like this. This is from Raphael. At 8:35 a.m., seeing that I had deviated from the route, I tried to turn left, but the controls did not respond. They had locked themselves in the ascent position. The clocks started to swing at the same time. The compass was spinning rapidly. All the instruments had
That's
gone
what
mad.
usually happens when
I entered a very dense cloud and continued to ascend. I had no visibility. Similar to Joe McMoneagle's report, where his friend going from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini also encountered a mist, sort of weird dark mist.
They'll say Bimini Road, where Atlantis is supposed to be the real one, not a different. Anyways, that Bermuda Triangle, this is very familiar. I've heard of hundreds of other stories about ships, boats, planes, encountering, these clouds and a tunnel and everything, and navigational equipment going haywire and stuff like that. This has been happening forever. So, thank you. Thank you very much for a follow. Uh, to Jill, good to see you. Hope everyone's had a good day here, morning and night. Even Columbus, when they were sailing here, said that they saw lights in the sky, UFO type stuff happening. It was recorded, stuff like that, weird stuff happening. So Bermuda Triangle is a huge place that could warp space, time, as well as many other places that I know have been to and stuff like that. So
that he flew into. He was trying to locate the volcano. I called the Mexico Tower for 2 minutes on its 118.1 megahertz frequency, and they didn't answer me. I changed the frequency to 121.5 and even made calls from Mayday and PAN, which is like the emergency channel. But no one answered me. When I noticed the compass and instruments, I instinctively looked at the bow, on the sides of the plane, and upstairs, and I saw nothing. So he was trying to find the cause, whether it's static electricity, magnetic field, anything he could attribute the damage to. Already outside the cloud, as I continued to call without result, I noticed that the altimeter was the only instrument that seemed to work well. The last reading was 10,000 feet. From then on, I don't remember anything. Only that I felt sleepy and was about to fall asleep.
Missing time.
When I became aware again, I found myself on the open sea. I was at 7,000 feet altitude as the altimeter marked, and when I saw the sea, I was very surprised. I thought I was dreaming. I took the microphone and called out, "Student 82," to any station that listens to me. I immediately got a response from Torre Acapulco and was ordered to switch to the 121.5 megahertz frequency, which is emergency. I don't know how often I was broadcasting before. Then they asked me my position, and I replied that I did not know, but that I was flying over the sea. They asked me to locate land, and I found a very small strip. I informed it like this, and they told me to head there. Fuel from the left tank had run out, and the right tank was almost empty. I don't know how much fuel I had, and so I informed the Acapulco Tower. I was told to land on runway 24 and to use any available in case of emergency. I landed, headed to the platform, and saw a Cessna 310 from the school. It was the XVLON, where Captain Ortiz had heard the whole message along with Fernando Acosta, a student who was being instructed on twin engines. Captain Ortiz came to meet me, and I asked him, "Captain, what am I doing here?" And he said, "If you came on the plane and you don't know, accept me." Later, the controllers and Captain Ortiz himself began to tell me what I had said. I don't remember anything. If I hadn't been told about those beings who have brought me so much trouble, I would have thought I fell asleep and nothing else. So, this is really interesting because he now describes falling asleep while in a plane and then waking up hours later. In which case, you should be dead. You should be in a mountainside somewhere.
Yeah.
So to his surprise, he was over a great body of water, which was nowhere near.
I feel like I have to report this because it's just things are telling me that I need to go back here. I just like being told I just need to put this out.
Suspend your disbelief, folks. Check it at the door, because we're going to get into some really wild and weird stuff. And we're going to start with my friend Joe McMoneagle. Joe McMoneagle was known as remote viewer number 001. Arguably the best remote viewer that the CIA and the Army and the government has ever produced. Joe went on to remote view Mars a million years ago for the DoD. He did so many secret projects using his psychic ability for the military that it convinced me that remote viewing is something real. So a few years ago, actually this channel is about 2 years old now, and about 2 years ago I sat down with Joe in his house in Virginia and had the pleasure of interviewing him. Throughout this 3-4 hour plus interview, Joe regaled me with so many fantastic tales of his time as a remote viewer. We then began to talk about UFOs, where he recounted a time where he was in, I think, Bermuda or the Bahamas, and he saw a craft right above his head, him and his friend. His friend was then subsequently
again, this is where it's like me and others, that know about how the oceans rose. And before Bimini, the Bahamas, all these places were actually mountains. And so you talk about where Atlantis is, Plato describes it. It's off, of Hercules, Pillars of Hercules, stuff like that. Gibraltar. It goes out to the Atlantic and stuff. It's not in these other places. It says, though, Plato says it, describes it well. And a lot of these ancient civilizations, they copy off each other. They look the same. You look at the pharaohs and the pyramids and stuff like that. You have the Mayans using pyramids. You have Chinese. They have pyramids. They copy off each other. It's sort of like a psychic thing that goes around the planet and everything. People use geometric shapes. Same thing happened with Atlantis and these other places. Is that people, use the same type of geometry and stuff like that in building these civilizations. And so that's why I attribute that. And so you have Atlantis out here in the Atlantic and stuff like that. The seas, the oceans rose because of the Ice Age and everything. And so, when people think about Atlantis as an advanced civilization, I don't want to get that out of here. We're on this right here. And the thing is that there is a lot of stuff with, Atlantis, and stuff like that, time, displacement, missing time changes in the Bermuda Triangle, ships that have gone missing through hundreds, or thousands of years, and that I believe this stuff is all connected. Missing time, changes, people going missing, going to different dimension, universes, or whatever. Anyways.
to the ER with radiation burns. He was given iodine pills, and he was told kind of never to speak of this again.
Let's go
right
back
after
over.
that,
I feel like
Joe
we're
tells me throughout this 3-4 hour plus interview, Joe regaled me with so many fantastic tales of his time as a remote viewer. We then began to talk about UFOs, where he recounted a time where he was in, I think, Bermuda or the Bahamas, and he saw a craft right above his head, him and his friend. His friend was then subsequently sent to the ER with radiation burns. He was given iodine pills, and he was told kind of never to speak of this again. Right after that, Joe tells me another story, one that failed to make it on to that documentary that I put out. Well, this one rings eerily similar to what we are looking at now. Have a look.
Now, I talked to a guy. In fact, I get invited to his house down in the Florida Keys later, and my wife and I went down there. My wife at the time was my second wife. We drove down and met him, and he flew back and forth from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini once a week. He'd fly to Bimini and fly back. So he did that for years, like 2.5 years. So his plane, he knew exactly, it was a twin engine. He knew exactly the amount of fuel he needed to go from there to there. He knew exactly how much time it took to go from there to there. And this one time he was coming back from Bimini, and he said he flew into a weird cloud. And it was weird because on the tips of his wings, it was starting to encroach on the tips of his wings, and his wings were disappearing. And it made him nervous. And then suddenly, right in front of him, this bright light opened up, and this huge object started right at his plane, and he put his plane into a nosedive, and it went over him, and he cut around to the left, and all he could see was this funny cloud again. So he dropped to the ground and flew the rest of the way to Fort Lauderdale. 10 minutes later, Fort Lauderdale got him on the radio and said, identify yourself, identify yourself. And so he identified himself, and that was no surprise to him, but when he landed, he was 2 hours early. Early. And he still had a full gas load. That's what he told me. He said, I said, well, what was this? He said, I have no idea what it was. But I don't fly out of Fort Lauderdale anymore. I fly out of Miami.
Yeah.
I'm not
I've
sure
heard many
I'd buy
stories.
UFOs from another
Lots
star.
of different ones.
I think everything's local, and they may be interdimensional.
Very
Right,
interesting. Now
yeah.
let's put a pin in that and travel to Mexico. So we have an interview coming up with Mr. DeCrecci. Mr. DeCrecci was the gentleman that was working in Acapulco at the radio tower who communicated with Mr. Perez, who was channeling this being while he was flying over a body of water. Mr. DeCrecci sat down for a pretty lengthy interview in Spanish. My research team has since grabbed the transcript from that interview and translated it into English, and that's what we are going to be reading, which is his account. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Carlos de los Santos, because this incident happened 1 year prior. So May 3rd, 1975 in Mexico, Carlos de los Santos, a 23-year-old pilot for Mexicana Airlines, was flying a Piper PA-24 Comanche over Mexico on a clear midday route from Zihuatanejo to Mexico City.
That kind of plane is a lot better than those other stupid Cessnas. I mean, sexy kind of look, but it is that kind of plane I would not. I know I have misgivings, but Cessnas and cheap aircraft, no, I would not want to fly one of those. But Daddy Daniels, she could afford it. Anyways,
Me if I'm butchering that name. Now, Carlos gives a pretty detailed and in-depth interview, which I've linked below, but around noon, Carlos was flying under 10,000 feet, all right? When all of a sudden, on the left side of his window, he sees a silver metallic craft hover right above his wingtip. This is then followed up by another one to his right. Now, when I say hover right above his wingtip, I mean this is 10 to 20 centimeters above his wingtip.
A dark gray object was flying over the left wing's upper surface for about 10 or 20 centimeters.
You're talking about 20 centimeters away? That's it?
Yeah.
Now, for a pilot, this must be absolutely terrifying.
but
it didn't stop there, because a third object approached head-on, directly toward the cockpit windshield.
Again, I gotta say this. I call these type of ETs, non-human intelligence, I call them juvenile delinquents. Because these are ones that cause trouble. You know, I call that in a jokingly way. Because, like I said, they're causing trouble. And me, I'm sure I would have crashed because I would have tried to leave my aircraft and, like, get the fuck off me. So it's better if this happened to him instead of someone like me that would just, you know, blown his gasket or whatever, you know.
Last moment dove beneath the craft and allegedly striking the landing gear. Now, the landing gear was actually damaged and pictures were taken and confiscated. However, as you'll see later, he tried to land and he couldn't get his landing gear to work, and that was confirmed by the radio tower. So all three objects were described as dark gray, seamless disc-shaped, with a black, glass-like dome on top. Carlos noted no visible engines, wings, or any normal means of propulsion. We're talking about 16 feet or 5 meters in diameter. All three exhibited identical characteristics. Classic disc or saucer shape with a smooth, seamless surface, no rivets, bolts, or visible joints.
Those are the types of planes I do not want to fly. I do not like those one bit. Anyways, listen.
A matte or fossilized texture that lacked reflection or shine. This does remind me of the craft that Bob Lazar had worked on at S4. And each craft had a dome-like structure on top resembling a cockpit or canopy. The dome was black and glass-like, but opaque, and Carlos couldn't see inside. This reminds me of the craft at Aztec. You see in Aztec, New Mexico, when that crash happened. By the way, go check out UAP Gerb's deep dive into the Aztec crash in 1948. It's an amazing video, incredibly detail-filled. But as some of you know on the channel, I'm a big fan of Will Simon's UFO crash at Aztec. In here, he also describes a dome on the flying saucer that is opaque and reflective, almost like plexiglass. So, immediately after the third object appeared, Carl lost all control of his aircraft. He couldn't turn left or right, and his landing gear was jammed. The plane began to climb without his input, eventually reaching 14,500 feet, which is well above the safety limits for an unpressurized cabin and without supplemental oxygen. So he radioed the Mexico City tower in a panic saying, "Mayday, I'm not flying my own craft." Here's an actual excerpt.
It said that the UFOs, that was for 18 minutes. 3 UFOs escorted his plane for 18 full minutes.
So he radioed the Mexico City tower in a panic saying, "Mayday, I'm not flying my own craft." Here's an actual excerpt from Carlos in panic.
It's a very special experience for me.
Now, if that doesn't bring chills down your spine, I don't know what will. It seems so terrifying to me. But obviously, he goes into a great deal of detail in his 2012 interview, and he's kind of thankful for the whole ordeal, but at the time must have been really scary. So the 3 UFOs escorted his plane, get this, for a full 18 minutes. And not only that, radar confirmed there was an echo.
Oh, yeah. It's papers. I just want to see J class saucer. Don't structure. Glass like opaque. Like behavior.
Get this, for a full 18 minutes. And not only that, radar confirmed there was an echo of 3 crafts in formation alongside his. That was confirmed. So as Carlos neared the Valley of Mexico, the discs peeled away, one ascending toward...
It's really something because usually they cannot be seen by radar. Usually they can't. You know, nowadays radar is different and everything, but, you know, back when they usually be invisible. No way to prove it. So obviously they want to make themselves known by letting themselves be seen by radar. They have to do that.
Popocatépetl volcano. Very sorry about that. Another moving off horizontally, and the third disappearing from beneath his fuselage. At that moment, full control of his craft returned to Carlos. Now, he attempted to lower the landing gear, but no lights confirmed it was down. So over the next 11 passes and 77 minutes, Carlos was forced to circle until ground crews eventually confirmed that the gear was locked, and then he eventually landed safely. Being lucid the entire time, Carlos also talks in great lengths about the maneuvers of the craft, saying the flight behavior exhibited precision control at high speed, positioning themselves a mere 20 centimeters, less than 8 inches from his wings without turbulence. And then after disengaging, all 3 discs performed a 270-degree turn with a 3-mile radius, accelerating to 400 to 450 knots, which is well above 500 miles an hour. Maneuvers that no 1975...
Like I said, with these craft, they have like a slipstream type of thing around them, where matter, like Earth and matter and physics, it doesn't do anything to these craft because a lot of these craft have a slipstream effect that's around them, where all matter, Earth and matter, what is other stuff, gravity, it just goes around the craft itself, goes around it. So, you know, not having get buffeted up and down and breaking into the aircraft and destroying it. That's one reason. So.
The aircraft could match. So Carlos emphasized the absence of traditional aircraft features, no wings, no engines, no control surfaces, and asked aloud during interviews, how do they fly? There are no wings, no exhaust, nothing. Some investigators, including Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Jacques Vallée, suggested that the craft created an electromagnetic field around his plane, potentially explaining his sudden loss of control and forced the altitude gain from 10,000 up to 14,500 feet. So, Carlos eventually lands the plane. He was immediately detained and given medical and psychological exams. Authorities suspected hypoxia, which is kind of this delirium that happens at high altitude, or drug use. None of which were present. He passed every test. His case made the front page news across Mexico, and 2 air traffic controllers publicly confirmed seeing the radar returns of 3 UFOs and described an impossible 270-degree turn executed within a 3-mile radius at 600 miles an hour beyond the capabilities of any known aircraft.
Cuando nos llamó más la atención y nos desconcertó fue cuando inició un viraje de 270 grados por la izquierda en un radio de 3 a 4 millas.
Carlos was later visited twice by the Men in Black. This happened twice in 1975. The first encounter was while Carlos was en route to an interview. So while driving to an interview with renowned Mexican journalist Pedro Ferriz, Carlos was intercepted. 2 identical black Grand Marquis sedans resembling diplomatic vehicles boxed in his car, one pulling alongside and
that's
the other
not what they
cutting
look like.
in
I
front.
don't know why. I mean, this is not. They look like they have the same kind of look, but that's not. I hate why they use a stupid ass. It's not. Like that's black hair, some blonde stuff like that and everything. But you're gonna get chills. They can, like I've said in other videos, is that these cars and Men in Black can warp space and time around you. You can feel the effects of them in these cars, how they follow you and everything, how they're around you. We had to kill these guys. If they tried anything on me, they'd be dead. They are scary. These guys, you get chills. You know right away they're not human. Whether some people say they're android, like they could be as well, but
The occupants? 4 men, emerging in unison and identical in appearance. They were described as followed: pale skin, blonde or light hair, Nordic, almost Scandinavian features, or as Carlos put it in his interview, they look like Vikings. Emotionless expressions.
well, they look dead. They look dead. They look like corpses. So the picture, like I said, the picture shown here did not give real, authenticity. They're more like dead corpses. That's how white they are. They don't look Nordic.
Felt robotic, stiff, and unnervingly synchronized.
Yeah.
One man leaned into Carlos's window and said in Spanish, "If you appreciate your life, don't talk anymore." They returned to their cars and vanished without a trace, but it doesn't stop there. You see, Carlos was intercepted once again by a second encounter from the so-called Men in Black, only this time before meeting Dr. J. Allen Hynek, one of the lead investigators for Project Blue Book, renowned physicist and astronomer. So days later, just before a private breakfast with Dr. Hynek, Carlos parked outside the hotel. He ascended the steps, and he was struck in the back by a hand. Turning around, he saw one of the same 4 men from the earlier incident, identical face, same robotic demeanor. The man told him, "You are not going to see Dr. Hynek. Turn around, go." Carlos attempted to argue, but the man repeated, "Go. Get lost." And Carlos obeyed. He left without attending the meeting. Obviously, later he would tell Hynek what happened, and UFO researchers Ray Stanford and Pedro Fariz would help him reconstruct the events, confirming their interest in the Men in Black phenomenon and even linking it to NASA's classified research into paranormal activity. Now, we know this now to be the Men in Black. These guys show up everywhere, and the same description is given. They're almost uncanny valley-like. Like, there's something strange about their faces, the morphology of their heads, or just the way they look.
Those guys look like clowns. They do not even resemble. I mean, if you ever see a Man in Black, it scare the shit out of you. It's about, so.
And the fact that they spoke in this robotic tone just makes it so much creepier. In an interview, Carlos did emphasize the following. He said that the men were not normal humans. Their faces, height, and voices were identical. That's so scary. He said their speech was mechanical and almost computer-like, and that they bore a resemblance to Nordic beings but wore suits and traveled in diplomatic-style black vehicles. He later learned from Stanford and Hynek that other experiencers had reported similar cloned or...
I have to say, for those that don't know, there's Eisenhower's granddaughter, or great-granddaughter, I think it's great-granddaughter, I don't know which it too, said, that Eisenhower made, a truce with the Nordic ETs, where if we would not interrupt them doing harvesting on us, harvesting, reproduction, abducting us for breeding purposes, making a new race, and also cultivating some for trafficking, for psychic abilities, stuff like that, depending, then we'll give you technology. This is Eisenhower's granddaughter, or great-granddaughter, okay? And stuff. So, I mean, I invite people to look that up. This happened at Edwards Air Force Base, Muroc, at the time, and everything. So I think there is a connection with this where ETs do not want this stuff out, as well as the government that's willing to kill people to shut them up and keep things quiet. So are some, these non-human intelligences, whether they're androids or whatever,
or duplicated Men in Black following major verifiable UFO events. This is so interesting that Carlos wasn't aware of the Men in Black, and he was describing exactly what other people have described. Fascinating. Now, if one of these Men in Black is out there and would like to sit down to the podcast, we'd be more than happy to accommodate your every need in order for us to have a conversation. Probably not likely going to happen, but you don't know if you don't ask. To conclude Carlos's story, he flew professionally for 32 more years, never reporting another encounter, and his voice recorded live during the event trembled as he told air traffic
Honestly,
control.
if those things came around me, I want to take a knife and cut them open and see what's in them. See, those parts or whatever. It's like, you threatened me, now you're dead. It's like, I want to see what's in them. I want to see what, android and stuff like that.
Controllers. I have no control. It's not me flying the aircraft. And folks, this remains one of the strongest cases on record, a broad daylight encounter with radar confirmation, physical evidence because of the collision with the landing gear on the plane, pilot testimony, and an attempted cover-up involving Nordic-looking type Men in Black. Just an absolutely fascinating case here of Carlos de los Santos in 1975. We're now going to go to Rafael Pacheco Perez, June 21st, 1976 in Mexico. I'm going to read to you, to start, an excerpt from UFOs and Mexican Aviation by Carlos Guzman and Alfonso Salazar. This book was printed in Spanish. I've had it translated here, this little portion, so that I can read and share it with you. The following case can be classified as the second most important to have occurred in the annals of Mexican ufology on the subject of UFOs and pilots. The first potentially being Carlos here that we just read. On the morning of June 21, 1976, Rafael Pacheco, a student at the Mexican Aviation School, was due to make a local flight to Chimalhuacan in Texcoco. I am so sorry about butchering these names, by the way. I've never gone to Mexico. I should culture myself a little bit more on how this is pronounced, but there we are. On whose ground runways all students from 7 aeronautical schools that exist in our capital carry out their internships. At 8:15 a.m. that day, Rafael boarded the Cessna 150 plane with registration XBZOX, took off at 8:25 a.m. and headed east for Chimalhuacan. The weather was cloudy and foggy. So, to set this up, folks, this guy was 23 and he was a student. He was learning how to fly a plane, and this plane was made for students. This plane was made for training purposes. It didn't have a big fuel tank. It wasn't made for long distances. This begins very anomalous.
When I was young and stuff, I knew that reality was fake already. I knew stuff, UFOs, I see dead people, angels, stuff like that and everything. So it's like learning about different civilizations and stuff that has connections to ETs and Mayan civilizations, which ETs were there. They interacted with each other, Mayan civilizations, in South Mexico, South America and everything. So you got these days keep walking, stuff like that. Goes way back thousands of years ago. So
such a flight requires 60 to 90 minutes of landing and takeoff. However, 2 hours passed without news from the ZOX. That's when the school's principal, Captain Miguel Batanero, ordered several small planes to leave to locate Rafael, as it was feared he had had an accident. At around 11:15 a.m., this is 3 hours later, while in full search, Captain Batanero received a long-distance call from Captain Ortiz Lara, the school's chief pilot, who was at Acapulco Airport instructing a student who warned him that the XBZOX plane did not have to be there, had been reported and was about to land. This guy is now 300 kilometers away, hypnotized by extraterrestrials. Captain Ortiz also told his superior that something was wrong with Rafael, as he had delivered a 40-minute message to humanity and spoke of his being hypnotized by extraterrestrial beings. Very upset, Captain Batanero ordered that when he got off the plane, he had been given a medical examination in the presence of the aeronautical authorities of Acapulco. Rafael landed at 11:22 a.m. and was immediately taken to the airport command, where Dr. Ernesto Velez stated the following: "The undersigned extends to the present medical certificate Mr. Rafael Pacheco, who, after having examined, found himself clinically healthy." He had his wits about him, ladies and gentlemen. Immediately afterwards, an official information record was drawn up to attest to the event. Controller Villagran stated it was approximately 10:30 a.m. when the XBZOX license plate aircraft made contact with the Acapulco Tower at its own frequency of 118.5 megahertz, requesting that another frequency be designated to give a message. I told him to proceed in it, to which the ZOX insisted on the assignment of a different one, because the message was too long. He was assigned the 123.45. Subsequently, having made contact with the new frequency, the ZOX said that the pilot of the aircraft was under hypnotic effect and was being used as a means of passing the message. He said, "The person who speaks is from another planet. I come in peace. I do not want to harm the pilot or anyone else." He continued to broadcast a series of fantasies for about 45 minutes. This gets stranger and stranger, folks. But yeah, apparently he didn't want to be on, I guess, one of the frequencies that is used in short form, and he wanted to jump to a different frequency, one that I think could not be recorded, if I'm not mistaken. But let's move forward here. So
was
here's the
intentional,
conversation.
I feel.
So the statement of Controller Kretschy, which we'll eventually get to, we have his whole interview here, which we're going to read through. Having listened to the conversation between Comrade Villagran and the famous strange beings, I agreed to take the communication with frequency 123.45, where the person continued to make a series of assertions against the human being. It made us see that we were an inferior civilization and that we were not alone in the universe.
Right.
That there were many other civilizations physically similar to us,
Right.
but mentally much more developed.
Right.
He also said that we were close to a global catastrophe, and we are the only beings in the universe who have a self-destructive mind, and that, on the contrary, they were positive and creative. That they have the power to annihilate in an instant all our modern apparatuses and atomic weapons.
Facts.
He noted that they had the power to change the color of the aircraft so that it would not be seen by Earthlings,
Right.
who at any given moment could be blue as the sky or white as clouds.
Yep.
Okay. So how come they speak Spanish? Well,
And this is the thing. I mean, a lot of people don't understand with psychic abilities is that even I have been able to do this a few times. Is that you can somehow know what another person is saying. If you don't know their language, sometimes you just stuff becomes easier to translate. You don't need Neuralink. This is another thing about how governments like to keep this stuff secret because it really, remote viewing, psychic abilities, you don't need technology for it. You don't. To communicate even on a galactic, extragalactic level, you can do that psychically. You can go through stars, you can do things through the mind. The mind is the most powerful thing there is in different multiverse, dimension, etc. It can break through dimensions even. Your psychic abilities can, telepathy or whatever, and everything. And one reason why governments keep it secret is because they want to weaponize it, they want to control it and everything, they use it for their own purposes. But understanding languages, other beings, and we have this ability too. We just have to relearn it, where some of our ancestors may have had these abilities. We just have to relearn them, unlock them, etc.
Voice was asked a series of questions, such as, if they're so perfect, how come they speak Spanish? To this, the voice replied
They know any
that they
language.
could understand any language in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
He was asked several questions in German and replied having fully understood what I said in regular English. He explained that the message had to end so that the pilot could land without fuel problems. She was asked if we could ever see that spacecraft, replying that it would never be seen because we are so destructive and aggressive that we would surely attack it.
Right.
Not wrong, but cool for asking. I would have asked the same thing, but yeah, not wrong. I would also assume that that's what we would do.
Yeah, that's
and in
what
fact, I would
humans
go
are.
so far
They're
as to
just
say that
all
that's what
selected.
we've done. The voice was heard without any hesitation. Very easily in word, but slow. At no time did he agree to change the frequency, and a few moments later the same voice was heard again saying, I am 82, who do I talk to, and where am I? The person was asked for her identification, and I noticed that she was completely confused.
Yeah,
okay, when it says the
mistranslation.
person, I think it's, I think she is just he, but I think it's because of the Spanish
Yeah,
translation.
it is. It is.
So yeah, the person said, who do I talk to, where am I? And then the person asked for his identification and noticed that he was completely confused. Captain Batanero referred to Raphael as a model student with good grades. He's very serious, and we don't know him as a liar. I don't mean this as true or false. I'm totally skeptical. But in the case of a boy like this, and also taking into account the conversation held in German and in English, everything makes me think. Rafael Pacheco Perez is a 23-year-old boy, and until the morning of June 21st, he had 53 hours of flight.
Only 53.
So it can be considered
Wow.
that he only knew the basic rules of aeronautics. He was not under the influence of alcohol or drugs that day, as was later found. He does not speak German, and as for English, he only knows the technical vocabulary related to his studies. We could see this by having him answer a questionnaire in English about his experience, of which he understood only single words. So, not only did he communicate some type of message, not only did he get to a place 300 kilometers away and still have almost a full tank of fuel.
Right.
By the way, had he gone from Mexico City, which would have been, a routine solo flight to Chimalhuacan airstrip, that would have been 60 to 90 minute flight. But instead, he ended up in Acapulco, a flight which should have taken 3 hours.
Right.
He ended up there in 90 minutes with a full tank of gas.
I wish we could have
Even
that here in
if he would
California.
have flown super, super fast and miraculously saved on gas somehow, he would have had to fly through the mountain range like a professional pilot to avoid radar detection. This makes
Those
zero
planes are too
sense.
freaking
This is
slow to do
insane.
that anyway.
This is such an insane case here. Here's Raphael's story, by the way. And we're going to get into some of the things that were said, because the voice that came through Raphael also referred to Raphael as a microphone, which is super bizarre and dark and weird. There's just so much to unpack in a story like this. This is from Raphael. At 8:35 a.m., seeing that I had deviated from the route, I tried to turn left, but the controls did not respond. They had locked themselves in the ascent position. The clocks started to swing at the same time. The compass was spinning rapidly.
Yeah,
all
that's
the
what
instruments
happens.
had gone mad. I entered a very dense cloud and continued to ascend. I had no visibility. Similar to Joe McMonagle's report, where his friend going from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini also encountered a mist, sort of weird dark mist that he flew into. He was trying to locate the volcano. I called the Mexico Tower for 2 minutes on its 118.1 megahertz frequency, and they didn't answer me. I changed the frequency to 121.5 and even made calls from Mayday and PAN, which is like the emergency channel. But no one answered me. When I noticed the compass and instruments, I instinctively looked at the bow, on the sides of the plane, and upstairs, and I saw nothing. So he was trying to find the cause, whether it's static electricity, magnetic field, anything he could attribute the damage to. Already outside the cloud, as I continued to call without result, I noticed that the altimeter was the only instrument that seemed to work well. The last reading was 10,000 feet. From then on, I don't remember anything. Only that I felt sleepy and was about to fall asleep. When I became aware again, I found myself on the open sea. I was at 7,000 feet altitude as the altimeter marked, and when I saw the sea, I was very surprised. I thought I was dreaming. I took the microphone and called out, "Student 82, to any station that listens to me." I immediately got a response from Torre Acapulco and was ordered to switch to the 121.5 megahertz frequency, which is emergency. I don't know how often I was broadcasting before. Then they asked me my position, and I replied that I did not know, but that I was flying over the sea. They asked me to locate land, and I found a very small strip. I informed it like this, and they told me to head there. Fuel from the left tank had run out, and the right tank was almost empty.
By the way, this does happen a lot. Where people, of course, missing time, everything, they're put out to sleep or whatever, and they just wake up. So that missing time happens, and they don't know where the hell they were. I know personally, back in high school, Northern California, he went for a walk around Hume Lake. This is Clay National Forest. And he went for a walk, and then something happened. He just went out, and missing time happened. People were looking for him. And me as a kid, I knew about alien abduction, missing time, even not associated with ETs or whatever. But time dilation differences that happen in these areas. People go missing and stuff like that, national parks. and it's like he had one of those missing time episodes.
I don't know how much fuel I had, and so I informed the Acapulco Tower I was told to land on runway 24 and to use any available in case of emergency. I landed, headed to the platform, and saw a Cessna 310 from the school. It was the XVLON, where Captain Ortiz had heard the whole message along with Fernando Acosta, a student who was being instructed on twin engines. Captain Ortiz came to meet me, and I asked him, "Captain, what am I doing here?" And he said, "If you came on the plane and you don't know, accept me." Later, the controllers and Captain Ortiz himself began to tell me what I had said. I don't remember anything. If I hadn't been told about those beings who have brought me so much trouble, I would have thought I fell asleep and nothing else. So,
they did pretty strong.
this is really interesting because he now describes falling asleep while in a plane and then waking up hours later. In which case, you should be dead. You should be in a mountainside somewhere.
Yeah.
So to his surprise, he was over a great body of water, which was nowhere near the airstrip that he had originally planned to fly to. Incredibly confusing. So how could I get to Acapulco is what Raphael is asking himself. The aircraft that Raphael crewed was a Cessna Model 150 aircraft with room for 2 people. It does not have auxiliary systems such as the VOR or the ADF. It is intended for local practice flights.
Yep.
And in addition,
cheap,
the young pilot did not carry a navigation chart, flight plan, plotter, or computer that day. Raphael had only made one flight over the route.
That doesn't make
with
sense.
An instructor
That makes
to
no
Leon
sense.
Guanajuato. In short, the boy was not able to fly alone to Acapulco, even though he had carried with him the necessary material to orient himself. As Raphael headed southeast of DF and headed toward Lake Tequisquitengo, the radar did not detect his plane because it must have flown in the 12,000-foot chain of hills. Radar waves never touched XBZOX, and his position was not known until he made contact with Torre Acapulco. So there you go. He's flying under the radar over the mountain, between mountain range. That's an insane thing to do for someone who has 50 hours of flying time. That's like if you just got your learner's permit, you know, you had maybe a drive with your dad teaching you how to drive, and then you all of a sudden you end up downtown Manhattan with people honking at you and trying to get through traffic. It makes no sense. Raphael lost consciousness at about 8:45 a.m. and contacted Torre Acapulco at 10:30 a.m. while flying over Mojoneras. That is, it was an hour and 45 minutes, which, adding to the 18 minutes of flight between Mojoneras and Acapulco, gives us 2 hours and 3 minutes, a record time, especially if we consider the deviation to Chimalhuacan.
He's trying,
Not only
guys.
did he
He's trying.
fly on the mountain range under the radar with a Cessna with 50 hours of flight time, but he did this in a whopping world record time. To conclude, it says, at first when we began to investigate the case, we believed that it was all a story invented by the pilot. But as we delved into the facts, we found no elements that indicated the student's joke or excuse. On June 24th evening, several people called the airport to report that they were seeing slow-moving UFOs. Mario Alcantara from Sol de Mexico tried to interview the director of RAMSA, the Radio Aeronautica Mexicana, Enrique Mendez, but he could not receive him because he was in an important meeting, and television, which initially broadcast the case widely, was later inexplicably silent. Now, this is such a baffling case, and so I would give anything to listen to that message. And in fact, we do have a small snippet of it. Listen to this chilling snippet of this being channeling Raphael.
Yeah.
Crazy. He took off from Mexico City. Should have been a routine solo flight to the nearby Chimalhuacan airstrip. Instead, was him flying inexplicably 300 kilometers away to Acapulco. A flight which should have taken 3 hours in his Cessna 150, which was completed in just 1 hour. He then radios into the air traffic controller, Carlos de Crecci, who we're going to hear from in a second, but his voice was strange, emotionless, and robotic, which is interesting, because that's also what the Men in Black sounded like.
Yeah.
The transmission says, he speaks because he is ordered to. It is his voice, but he speaks not of his own free will. We use it as a microphone. And the entities claim to be extraterrestrial, physically similar to humans again, and confirmed the existence of other...
That we are exact same, but that's not true. So, I mean, people can say, you know, this Nordic type of species of non-human intelligence or ETs, that this could be the Nordic people or whatever they is. Of course, some are good and some are evil. They're not all good. So, I mean,
other alien civilizations, and the voice spoke English, Spanish, and German, 2 languages which, especially German, Raphael did not speak. Not just fluently, at all. He did not speak German. The interesting thing here as well is noted that, no drugs, no signs of mental illness, no hypoxia, but also that this would be Perez's last flight. He never flew again after that. It messed him up so bad, he claimed that the event and the beings behind it destroyed his career. He believed that aliens were...
Give this guy some baths with some marijuana, some alcohol, maybe. So we can spice up this stuff up. Spice the stuff up a bit, make it, really spicy or something. But I digress.
were malevolent and that he had been used against his will. Although they claimed that they were benevolent, Raphael didn't think so. This is an interview conducted in Spanish. I'll leave the link below if you want to check out the original interview. We have translated the transcript here, which I will be reading from, but please feel free to go check out the original. This is from Mr. de Crecci. And pardon for some of the translation might not be 100% accurate, so be mindful of that. Here we go. We are 2 on duty, and we hear, it was around 11 in the morning, more or less, a very quiet shift. There was no traffic. Conditions were excellent. Blue sky, no clouds, nothing. Everything fine. It wasn't a distress call. Let me make that clear. I was working my normal shift in the Acapulco control tower. It was approximately 11 in the morning. Normally, there are 2 people on the tower shift. We were seated. It was a very quiet shift. There wasn't much traffic. Clear sky, no clouds, no traffic. And a call comes in on the tower frequency, which was 118.5. I remember it very well. And he says,
Acapulco Control Tower. We are aircraft XBZOX.
But they said it, really said it, using phonetic alphabet. That is XB Zulu Oscar X-ray.
One of those you call Cessna 150.
That caught my attention. He said, you call them, as if the pilot is also involved in this. Why say you call them? And the way he spoke to me, the way he said it caught my attention. So the entity is clearly the one communicating here, and he's like, I'm in this type of airplane which you call a Cessna, which is such a weird thing to hear if you're at radio control. And I say, yes, go ahead, give me your position. At the time, there was no radar in Acapulco yet. We did what's called manual control, which is calculation by speed, distance, and time. And almost immediately he says to me,
the voice you are hearing is from extraterrestrial beings.
That's not the actual audio, I just said that because we heard something.
And this is the alien speaking.
Look, I'm going to explain. The ZOX aircraft, the pilot, is flying in a hypnotic state. We are using his vocal cords to speak to you. He is not aware. He is speaking, rather, He is being used by us so that we can speak with you.
I was truly astonished when he told me all this. And I say, tell me the position of the aircraft. He says,
It is flying south of your airport, over the sea.
south in Acapulco is straight out over the sea. And then he starts telling me a series of things. And I say, what's your position? He says,
We are flying stationary.
or rather,
We are stationary, over your airport, at an altitude of about 85,000 feet.
5,000?
that catches my attention because 85,000 feet is not an altitude that an aircraft could normally fly, not airliners, much less private planes. Obviously, also too much for a Cessna. A Cessna has a service ceiling of no more than 15,000 feet or so. The ones at that altitude wasn't the Cessna.
Try to go up there, you burn out, you just go all the way down. Good luck, good crash.
It was those people, or the people that were speaking through Raphael. I go over to the window. I get up from my chair. I go to the window, and what we controllers always do is look around with our eyes for whoever is talking to us when they're near the airport. And I look up, and he says,
No, no, no. Don't look for us because you can't see us.
This greatly caught my attention because the one who was speaking with me was seeing me. He saw my movements when I went up to the glass. And this really astonished me because someone can't see me if I'm in the control tower. It's a very high place. And he saw what I did. I sit down again and I'm astonished. So the interviewer then asks, we know from the chronicles of that time that there were some leaks to...
With UFO encounters that I have, you know they can see you from miles and miles away. And you know they can see you as well. There's that psychic thing. And they can remote that ways of being able to see you from miles and miles out, see people on a psychic level and everything. It's crazy.
To the press, and that this supposed extraterrestrial being spoke to you in German because you speak that language. Is that true, Mr. DeCresci? 100% sure. I speak German. My family, my parents spoke to me in German all my life, and I was at the German school. So my language, I grew up with the language until I was 15. And then he begins to speak to me. The voice of the one who was speaking to me was a completely metallic voice. Let's suppose like when a robot is speaking, something like that, in normal Spanish, but a kind of slow, metallic voice. The interviewer asks, without any accent from some country? No accent of any kind. He only spoke to me in normal Spanish, but as if it were a robot. We are speaking with you like that, in that manner. And then he starts telling me a number of very interesting things. He says, we are extraterrestrial beings. We are from another world. And I ask, from which world? He says, it could be any world because we move throughout the universe. And since that time, I was very interested in that kind of thing. It astonishes me. It doesn't scare me. But yet...
Well, it sounds like a paid advertisement. Like they were told this is like how YouTube puts out ads on certain things. It's just like this civilization told them, we want you to go out, put out this message. Don't say this, but say this. This is what we're going to tell these bots to put out. This sounds very familiar to me.
It astonishes me because I realize I'm having an experience. And he says, we are beings from another world. So at this point, Mr. DeCresci is kind of excited because I think he's realizing that he...
I should say, stupid Google YouTube is not getting this guy's name right, DeCresci. It's not Deshi. So I need to put that out there as correction.
He's having first contact. He's communicating with an entity from another world. And I say, well, how is it that you can speak to me in Spanish? He says,
What happens is that, among many things we can do, we can speak the language of this world or any world.
And since my native language was always German, and thinking German isn't a common language, I said, well, let's see if you can really speak any language. And I speak to him in German. That is, I ask questions again in German, and he answers me in perfect English. Not in German, but in English. But I'd like to imagine he did it to show. I understand your German, and I also speak English. That's what he led me to understand.
They're not gonna let a puny human mind trick them, is what he countered it. It's like, I know you're trying to do, you're not gonna let a little human try to trick me.
Rather, that's how I chose to understand it, and well, in Spanish too, of course. And I'm again very astonished. Oh, this is interesting. So he didn't actually speak German. Oh. He responded in English. Oh, that changes things a little bit. That does add a little bit of skepticism here, I would say. Conviction level lowered by a few points, but not too much. Interviewer asks, with the same metallic sound? The same. At this point, and he's beginning to tell me they were beings from another world and they could speak many languages and so on, another airplane calls me on frequency, flying over Acapulco Bay to the right of the airport, 4 or 5 miles out. And he calls me on a frequency and says, Acapulco Tower, the aircraft you're speaking to, the XBZOX, what is it doing in Acapulco? I am the director of Escuela Mexico in Mexico City, and that aircraft is ours, and we want to know what's going on. I say, sir, if you don't know, even less do I. He just checked in with me. I'm trying to give him instructions. They're speaking with me. I don't know. Give me instructions to land. My colleague brings him to land. This director is astonished. I don't recall the director's name. He comes to the control tower and says, let me tell you that XBZOX is a Cessna 150, a very small airplane. Its fuel quantity is extremely limited. Its range is very short, and it's not possible for this man. We think we know who he is because we're looking for him. We already had him listed as an emergency. Maybe he'd crashed. They're already searching for him in Mexico City. So may I use your phone? Of course. And he calls his school. So he says, the airplane is ours from the school. And can I use your phone? And he makes a call and says, suspend the SAR search. The aircraft has appeared. It's not crashed. It's mysteriously flying south of Acapulco. The interviewer says, this is very coincidental, isn't it? Very coincidental that the director of the corresponding school also turned up. The controller says, very coincidental. He didn't know that one of his airplanes was flying in the Acapulco area with an airplane that doesn't know how to do that, can't do that, doesn't have the fuel endurance to do it, and supposedly the one flying it didn't have the experience to do it either. So don't search anymore, it's appeared. By then, in a short time, the civil aviation inspector was already up with me in the tower, the airport commander, the owner of the school, and shortly after I had, 6 or 7 people there, utterly astonished. And they asked me things, and I said, wait a moment. Let me speak with this gentleman because as controller, I have to give instructions. And I say, give me your position. And he says, tower, I don't know where I am, nor do I really know who I'm speaking to. And I say, you're speaking with the Acapulco control tower. So the interview says, at that moment, the extraterrestrial was no longer speaking, or did it continue? The controller says, well, yes, I skipped a bit. You're right. In truth, when the voice starts saying things to me, I keep asking why they were giving me that kind of information. Because they spoke about the world coming to an end. That there would be self-destruction among countries. And well, that there would be. What we now know there is right. And I asked why he was giving me that kind of information. And not to a president. Or, a defense secretary.
Yeah,
why to me? And I remember he said,
we cannot make communication with just anyone. With you, we can.
I didn't understand why. What was different about me for this message to be given to one person rather than another? That is very strange.
Government, you can't trust, as much as I hate and never trust government, stuff like that. Use a big official or something like that, or use a station, or not just a radio station, or use a news outlet. You take over people in the news, mainstream news or whatever, or something. I mean, that can get put all over the country. not gonna get. But I mean, if they want to, there's a way they can make it big. Why just another human that only? Let's see how he views this house here. This is 798,000. Only 798,000 versus hundreds of millions of people that would be able to listen here from it if it was like, mainstream news or something. I'd say someone, that has a big name or something like that. I don't know.
That's a very strange answer. They go on telling me that they had the power of mimicry, that they could modify their molecular and atomic structure to be seen or not seen, that they could do many things. This message lasted approximately, what I can tell you, about 40 minutes. God, I would love to hear that message.
We need that.
And while I was being given this message, I'm talking about, I already had it mentioned there, and they were listening to the conversation. And then the interviewer said, so the extraterrestrial or supposed extraterrestrial continued speaking in English. He said, no. When I asked him to speak German, he answered me in English. After that, everything was in Spanish again, all in Spanish. So they were telling me they would intervene to save humanity when the time came. In other words, they were setting themselves up as saviors in a difficult situation. They were telling me all these things. Above
I have 2 people watching. Give me the transcript.
all about being seen or not, about the world's languages, about being able to save the world in case of a conflagration. They were giving a message, let's say, to humanity. Now, this wouldn't be the first time we've had some type of being from another world warn humanity. This happens essentially during every single abduction encounter. This also happens during DMT trips. This also has happened with Dan Fry, I think in 1951 or 52 with the White Sands incident.
Dr. Dan Fry, you have been on an extraterrestrial vehicle, on a spaceship which is supposed to have entered the Earth's atmosphere from outer space. How was it? What did actually happen? And when?
It took place on the evening of the 4th of July.
That guy had balls. Back then, people make fun of you and say you belong in a mental institution. I mean, as bad as it could be nowadays, nothing but like back then. I mean, you're blacklisted, you're typecasted, and nobody would want you to be seen as a cancer, as a virus. People would not want to be around you. They just think it's your mental case that should be in a straitjacket. It takes balls back then. I mean, you lose everything. All credibility back then. It's a lot different today.
Way back in the year 1950. It occurred at the White Sands Proving Grounds near Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was employed at that time to set up instrumentations for testing of some large rocket motors. The event was simply the setting down to Earth of a sampling device, which apparently was being used at that time to take samples of Earth's atmosphere at ground level.
Where he met this alien from another planet, maybe Venus or something, and gave him channeled, or telepathically gave him a message for humanity to like put away the A and H bombs and, kind of like drop the nukes and get back to your spiritual journey type deal. When I realized that, as I said, about 40 minutes had gone by. He says,
"We are going to suspend the communication because we want this person to land at your airport safe and sound. We don't want to do him any harm."
Then I said, well, when are we going to speak again? Or in what time will we return?
"We don't know when. Very soon, or perhaps never. Because time is not a factor for us. We do not take time into account. For us, time does not exist. Very soon, or perhaps never. And you will learn."
That's something that more like an interdimensional. Because we have being able to see outside of this dimension, how I can see outside this, and know how time doesn't exist but only in standards and how everything is different and viewed differently. How humans judge each other is not how you are judged in the afterlife. Most stuff we do here doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. How people count sin doesn't matter as much as in the afterlife. It's a lot different. Time, space, all of that doesn't exist. It's a different dimension, etc. There are different dimensions as well. Different kinds and everything. It's not just heaven and hell. There are different kinds of dimensions. And if you're ever able to go outside your body, if you're having your death experiences, you see how time is different now. Humans, we actually move in slow motion. We move very mechanically slow. We talk slow. And me being able to see outside this dimension, outside my body, stuff like that, we move very slow. It's like, if I'm outside my body, or there are people that have had these experiences say the same thing, we can move in a blink of an eye. I can go light speed, beyond the speed of light. I can move, and people that see me move around before, because of being on your side, I move very fast. People are like, what the fuck is he doing? You know, I move. And you're like, why is he moving so fast? It's because being on the other side of stuff, that time is different, and we move differently here. Humans move very slow. This dimension, this plane of existence that we're in right now, we move very slow. We're very, very slow.
Our presence again.
Someday. Whoa. This interview, by the way, that we're reading through right now was 2012. So I wonder if he'd ever had some other confirmation since then. Who knows? Well, I was truly astonished, and then the communication is cut and reestablished almost immediately, now with the pilot's voice, when he's supposedly no longer hypnotized. Without a frequency change? No, the same frequency. On the same frequency, they cause the pilot to return to consciousness, and he begins to speak. Now him, not me speaking with them through him. That is, his unconscious or hypnotized state is restored to normal. And he starts shouting at me. I'm 82, I'm 82. And I obviously don't understand. I say, what do you mean by that? I'm student 82 from Escuela, Mexico. I want to know who I'm speaking with and where I'm flying. But now he was speaking very distressed. Well, not yelling at me, but desperate. He says, I'm looking at my watch. It's about 11:30 a.m. I took off at 8:15 a.m. from Mexico City on a local flight, more or less towards Chimalhuacan, where the pyramids are. Oh, interesting. Pyramids.
Yeah, and the thing is that ETs used to be there. And some would land right here on these just like landing pads, or be in the center here, or they land in the center. You're talking about ETs that have been around just forever. And everything. Gorgeous place. I mean, there's a lot of violence. Human sacrifice. That's the way it was back then. All these, like I said, ancient civilizations copied each other almost like on a psychic level. There are things the same as Atlantis and other archetypes and everything.
That was my practice area. 2 or 3 hours have gone by, and I'm seeing that I'm flying over the sea. I don't know where I am or how I got here.
That could be bad.
For now, I can tell you, you're speaking with the Acapulco control tower. I'm the controller on duty. Give me instructions to land. Well,
that could be bad.
Give me your position. I'm not seeing you. I don't know where you are. There was no radar, he says. I can only see water. Everywhere I look, it's only water. What do I do? I didn't know what to do because he couldn't give me any reference. After a minute or two, he says, I think I see the coastline. And I say, then head towards the coastline.
Yeah.
So we at least have a reference.
Right.
Over water, I won't be able to determine anything. He starts talking. He says, I'm almost over land now. Now give me instructions.
Yeah,
okay.
if you're flying reference of layout, and then try to familiarize where you can be and everything.
What do you see? It looks like I see the city with a bay on the left. And I say, then you're very close to the airport. The airport is in between what is Acapulco Bay, Acapulco itself, the airport, and behind the airport, it's a lagoon. I see the lagoon now. And he would say, I don't see, or I do see, until he says, I see your runway. And then I blocked the airport. Nobody goes out, nobody comes in to practically give him an emergency landing. Thank you very much. So during those 40 minutes, people didn't move, the medical person, the airport administrator, and they listened to the entire conversation. It was listened to in full by them. Whoa. The pilot finally lands fine. And of course, the moment he lands, all these people went down, went to the airplane and made determinations, took photos, drew up records that this kid, Rafael Perez, was not drunk or drugged. He was physically fine, if very nervous, but he wasn't under the influence of any substance of any kind, just very nervous. They took, I imagine, some immediate medical exam to check he was okay. He still manages to say to me, Tower, please, make a record of what happened because they're not going to believe me. And I say, don't worry, you involved me on a frequency for 40 minutes. This is automatically on record because I'm involved with you. You spoke with me and I with you. We have authorities here present and listening, and it's being recorded. Interviewer, and you had to sign the document? Controller. Yeah. Whoa! This is crazy, man. That exists. I mean, we heard a snippet of this distress call. I would love to hear the extent of it. If anyone out there knows anything about this case, please reach out. Mr. DeCrecci says, let me mention something, Carlos. At the beginning, when he calls me on the tower frequency, he asks for a frequency change. That is not to be on the tower frequency itself because he didn't want to disturb traffic. I say, stay on that frequency, no problem. There's no traffic right now. Give me a frequency change. I want a frequency where there are no airplanes and where it's not recorded. So I give him another frequency that I could listen to, that I could manage. And it happened to be the frequency of the jet bridges for passengers. Those little buses that attach to the plane and disembark people, they use that frequency. So officially, this whole conversation was not recorded on an aeronautical frequency. That doesn't mean it wasn't recorded. They asked it not to be. I don't know the reason. Was that request when you started talking with the supposed extraterrestrial or at the end? A little after the start. So he asked me for the frequency change. Yes, of course. Oh, wait. Okay, so maybe there isn't a transcript here. Maybe the only part that was recorded was that little snippet that you heard earlier on, which was him saying, I'm using this man as a microphone. Okay. Unlucky. The authorities check him and so on. Another very important event comes that is truly astonishing. A mechanic from Aeromexico, you know full well, pilots, controllers, mechanics, dispatchers, we have an aeronautical license that gives us the authority to do what we do, and we can't play with that license. What we do and say is, so an Aeromexico mechanic comes over, or they call him, so that as an expert, as a mechanic, he can verify the airplane's fuel. Somehow, they verify the fuel and realize the plane had not consumed fuel because they checked with the flight plan filed in Mexico how much he loaded and now how much he had burned. And he had not burned it. What? Wait, this goes against what they were saying earlier. I guess his gauges were off when he said, I looked at my gauges and he said the fuel tanks were empty. So that must have been Rafael reading the faulty gauges because when they measured the fuel tanks, they were full. This plane flew about 3 hours with a pilot who didn't know navigation with an airplane that, in theory, doesn't have the range to get to Acapulco, much less with the proper instruments. No radar, no transponder, nothing. And a completely inexperienced pilot. But most astonishing is that he did not burn gasoline. When the pilot is told, later I even asked someone to ask him something in English, he says, excuse me, but I don't speak a single word of English, I only speak Spanish. So who was it who understood me in German, spoke to me in English and in Spanish? It was his voice, but it wasn't him. the languages, that they could see me when I looked for him, the fuel, and what he himself recounts when he gives his account and he says that he was flying after 10 or 15 minutes of flying in the Mexico City practice area. He intended to return to land. He tries to use his radio, has no communication. He tries to bank left or right. The plane doesn't respond, up, down, or to the sides. He starts to get scared. And as far as he remembers, the plane starts flying upward and backwards and upward. Imagine they took him, suctioned him somehow. That's where he remembers up to. He loses consciousness and regains it 3 hours later in Acapulco when he's speaking with me. Interviewer says, however, if he had done it as a student, given all the mountains there are, he might have had an accident. And the controller says, of course, because the pass between Mexico City and Acapulco must cross Chilpancingo. In Chilpancingo, there are very high hills. There, the minimum to cross on instruments, the airway, I think, calls for 13,000 to 14,000 feet. He seems never to have flown at that altitude. He was around 9,000 or 8,000 feet, so he was weaving through. But supposedly, he didn't fly. They took him. So he didn't have that problem. Because the transfer of the airplane from Mexico City, well, Chimalhuacan, to the sea at Acapulco didn't happen by the airplane's own flight, but some other means that no one knows how. So what did the Acapulco authorities say? Look, they limited themselves to say nothing. In fact, when I was made to sign a statement, it's normal. At that time, we were Radio Aeronautica Mexicana, RAMSA, not SENEAM as now. That statement, which was signed before the aviation authority with the commander, the inspector, and so on, and I signed as a protagonist of this matter, as an integral part of it, was stamped confidential, where supposedly nobody knows, nobody knew. The company itself forbade me to speak to anyone about it. They said many people would seek me out, but please do not speak about it. They could even have fired me if I had. Okay, so he was warned and threatened about his job and made to sign a document, a non-disclosure agreement, that he couldn't bring this up. So what did the authorities themselves say? I don't know. They had no explanation, like anyone else. What was a fact was that the airplane could not have avoided burning fuel. And what they later hear, the recording they hear, was because a driver of one of those jet bridges accidentally recorded all this, and it seems they were able to hear it. We don't know who kept that tape. It mysteriously disappeared. I don't know if the tape was someone ran off with it. We don't know. But those 40 minutes, it seems too long for a time for the extraterrestrial, or supposed extraterrestrial, to have been speaking with that series of catastrophic messages. Wait, so there is a tape. Okay. We're flip-flopping back and forth between there is, there isn't, is there, who recorded it.
How good this is.
It's out there, apparently. So the interviewer says the idea of those beings was not threatening. They didn't want to present
the integrity of the tape. Wasn't put on any other devices. This is a long time ago, wasn't it? So.
And as something bad, but on the contrary, as positive, as if they were good, as if they were going to help humanity, as if the bad ones were us. The controller says,
you, for example, the only thing we see is that you make weapons to kill each other. We see that. The inhabited beings. You are the worst beings, the worst inhabitants of the universe, because we see you kill each other.
That is, they rated us as the worst of what can be alive in the universe.
Yeah.
So they presented themselves like, well, poor earthlings, right? But we will help you when the time comes. We're super good.
Well, this is the thing is that they're bounty.
The worst in the universe?
That's what their opinion is. Theirs. That's what their opinion is. They don't all. I don't know. But it's not what he said. Or see, whatever it said. It said, okay? It. Okay, we don't know what it is. And I think it's more like a public service announcement. That's just me. Alright? And it's going to bounty ETs that are worse than us, that commit crimes, rape and other stuff, and how they, take semen and impregnate women. So, no, that's not true. That's a big lie. That's a huge lie.
I mean, that kind of aligns with the prison plan.
But, yeah, I mean, that's their opinion. It's opinion. But it's not all factual.
Planet theory, when you think about it. Like, this is where they put the worst of the worst prisoners from the entire universe. So
yeah, I've heard that. We are.
Does that lend a little credence to Matilda McElroy's statement?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't like.
Yeah, what he's talking about is that some of us, even reincarnation stuff that were put here in this prison because of, like, you get out of this prison, you go to heaven or other dimension or whatever you go to, right? And you feel you can get sick, you get disease, you get cancers, you age, and you don't have all these psychic abilities that other non-human intelligences have. Also, on the other side, you can move past the speed of light, it's just a matter of thought and everything. So, what he's talking about is Matilda, where E.T. was talking through to her and stuff like that, saying that this place is a prison planet for souls and other species or whatever. And people need to look that up, though, about that ET, thing to their human's mind and, just like was speaking to her and stuff.
I don't like that. Of the whole universe, you know how many planets there are out there?
Where's the scientists?
Really? All of them? Every single one? There's not one, like, we're not top, bottom 5, we're the worst? So the interviewer asks, after so many years since you were a participant and have witnessed that extraordinary experience, what do you really think you lived through? And he goes, look, at that time in my life, I was a controller. And I can tell you that afterward, there were other events where I could verify that very strange things were happening. I always believed this could be something, that someone was visiting. At that time in my life, in my mind, I thought we are not alone.
The thing, this is coming into my head, is that their point of view, the other ETs that are doing this to us, it's going to seem to be this great type of crimes against us, they're saying that they're doing it for creating this race, this other race that's better than humans. This is their argument, not mine. And stuff. And they're saying that it's for the betterment. It's like they're also telling me this right now. It's like they're telling me this right now, and I gotta say fuck you. It's stuff because that's not true. You don't care about yourselves. You don't care about how we feel, the rape and trauma that's inflicted on us. And you're a really evil piece of shit for doing that. And stuff. So it's like they got their own views on things, and no, we're not. I mean, we're bad. Humans are bad. Humans can be very bad. But there are a lot of humans that are very good. I mean, there are times I hate humans. I can't be around them. And there's some humans that are great, awesome people. There's gold. Is every place and everything. And, there are good, bad extraterrestrials out there. There are ones that just want to teach us and give us, psychic, telepathic abilities. And we're not all human and stuff like that. We're much more than that. So they have their counterpoint that they make to me and to others, and I say, fuck you. And stuff, because I know a lot of them just see us as toys. And some even see us sort of like sexual type toys. So I have to put that truth out there. I have to.
In the universe. That's what I thought. Because later as a controller in Acapulco and later in Toluca, we had a series of phenomena. Not the same as this, but seeing strange things on the radar, very strange things that I don't recall now because it would take us another half hour. But at that moment, it was very clear to me this was real. I believe that this happened. Now, who are they? Where do they come from? I can't tell you, because they didn't identify themselves as such either. What was a reality is that I risked my aeronautical license on a truth that I lived, that happened. There was simply an event outside the normal, completely paranormal.
If this would be the U.S., let me tell you, that you have been told to shut up, you have been threatened a lot more severely. He would not be able to fly again. The government would know he would be on a blacklisted thing, blacklisted everything else. You see it as a mental case. So.
Because of the fuel issue, because of the languages, because they saw me, because of what the pilot himself recounts, inexperienced. The plane didn't have the capability to fly like that. So something very strange happened. Then a series of things happened to me years later as a controller, and I continue to consider that strange things exist in the cosmos, in the universe. It's my very personal point of view that things happen and keep happening. Because my colleagues who still work keep experiencing things. Things keep happening. I have a lot of contact with pilots. Many of them are really good friends of mine. They've seen impressive things. They have photographs of strange things. So my very particular point of view is that things happen in the universe. I can't tell you what, but I lived one of them, and it wasn't something normal. The interviewer then says, a moment ago you mentioned that the recording wasn't possible because of the frequency change that this being asked for. But what would you say if out there, I know someone who has this recording? Would you relive that part? And he says, I'd love to listen to it because, in fact, some pilot friends of mine, I think through my daughter, who is also in all of this, she's a pilot, sent me a fragment of that tape.
Wow.
The audio is very bad, but it gave me a bit of goosebumps because I managed to hear something that I know was how it happened because it was me, but with terrible sound and so on. So I really would like to hear it because it would be interesting to relive all of this because it was something incredible, fascinating. I mean, I'm not going to
totally digitized, redone, remade, remastered everything. Yeah, with technology and everything, get those bugs sounds impossible. Like I said, it was recorded, but what wasn't recorded on, the integrity of this tape and everything else. So obviously that one segment was bad. Where's the rest of it?
repeat all the things that are so impossible that went on with this case, but I mean, it seems not only that we have two highly anomalous commandeering almost of vehicles and human beings happen within, the span of a year in the same sort of local geographical area, but that also there appears to be cover-up in both cases, and that this is nothing new, that pilots see things. We've had pilots call in here. We have a 1-800 number where you're free to tell us your stories. The amount of pilots that have called in is kind of staggering. And most of them don't want to go public because they might lose their license. They're afraid to be ridiculed or, lose their job. They'll be considered unstable somehow. And for a pilot, that's very serious. What do you guys think of this case? One thing I mentioned at the top of this investigation was Frederick Valentich. This is another sort of commandeering of a vehicle, potentially. But this one's a little more mysterious. I wanted to throw it out there just because it's tangentially related, as it is a pilot encountering something anomalous. But then the aircraft actually goes missing, and this happened in 1978, so 2 years after what happened to Raphael. This is October 21st in 1978. Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Australian pilot. He was on a solo flight over Bass Strait, and his final radio transmissions described an encounter with a UFO, and he was never seen again. Here is the shocking, terrifying, and very ominous final words of Frederick Valentich, followed by 17 seconds of unexplained metallic scraping sounds.
Delta Sierra Juliet, is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? No known traffic. Seems It's a large aircraft below 5,000 feet.
What type of aircraft is it?
I cannot confirm. It's four bright, seems to me like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
No known aircraft in the vicinity.
Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. Delta Sierra Juliet. It's not an aircraft. It's...
Can you describe the aircraft?
As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it. It has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished. That strange aircraft's hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
So a massive search effort covered more than 1,000 square miles of sea and land. No trace of Valentich or his plane was found. 5 years later, an engine cowl flap washed ashore on Flinders Island. It was confirmed to be from a Cessna 182 within Valentich's aircraft serial number range. Okay, so was that his plane? Can't say for sure, but seems that way. But then, what's interesting is that numerous witnesses reported seeing a green light.
There's good and bad extraterrestrials. There's some that are aggressive that will kill, and Mssges is just play toys, whatever. And there are some that are just like humans. There's good and bad. All same thing with ETs and other non-human intelligence. So.
In the sky that night, and one person even saw a green light hovering above a small aircraft near the time Valentich disappeared, and an amateur photographer named Roy Manifold captured photos of an object exiting the ocean near Cape Otway on the same evening. The analysis was inconclusive. Now, I can't vouch for this photo. To me, this looks like it could be a fly, just like a horse fly, and like you maybe see its like transparent wing in its body. I wouldn't say that this is a UFO for sure, but if it was, I mean, highly anomalous, for sure. Having such a weird, strange distress call.
It looks like it has some matter around that as well. Right here, there's some matter that's given off, and it's almost like not a tap, but off of this, well, I won't say tap, but pebble type thing. Yeah, almost just like a liquid type, tape type or matter, something like that. I have no idea. Yeah, you don't know if it's real or not.
Fly, just like a horse fly, and like you maybe see its like transparent wing in its body. I wouldn't say that this is a UFO for sure, but if it was, I mean, highly anomalous, for sure. Having such a weird, strange distress call prior to his disappearance makes it that much more mysterious. But it should be noted that he was a believer in UFOs and had expressed concern, apparently, about being attacked by them. So I don't know how true that is. If that's inserted by the Men in Black, I don't know.
Wow.
But there you go. So, folks, that is today's comprehensive little deep dive into the stories of not only Rafael Pacheco Perez and his alien channeling experience and his mysterious teleportation, but also the story of Carlos de los Santos and his flight incident that happened when he was commandeered by 3 unidentified flying saucers and then subsequently threatened by Nordic-looking Men in Black. Also, Joe McMonagle's tale of his nameless friend living in Fort Lauderdale, and then finally, Frederick Valentich's UFO disappearance incident in 1978. Thank you, folks, for watching.
That's for Area 52 shout out. I want to get to. Let's see. I want to get to this. I want to get. I need to give you some water liquid real quick. Hold on just a second. so obviously, shout out to the news station, Gospel Tart here. This is a bit aged and stuff, so, I know why the Trump administration is the administration. I want political side, they're always going to lie about UFOs. And never trust the government, because they will always lie to you about stuff. So,
G'day and welcome to Reality Check Q&A with me, your host, Ross Coulthart, and to help me through always the most difficult part of the week, my friend and colleague, Megan Orada. Megan, as you can see, I'm in a hotel room on the road in Australia right now, but I hope I can be reasonably well seen okay.
Absolutely, and we will not give away your location.
In a location yet to be determined.
Love it. All right, let's get to the first question, Ross. We had so much awesome feedback from the Dr. Villarroel episode. We will go to Carlos. Dear Mr. Coulthart, congratulations for your last Reality Check episode. You are quite an amazing host and professional. I agree. Thank you for letting us know the research from Dr. Villarroel. I follow you here in my home country, Portugal, through the News Nation YouTube channel. When I was watching the interview, I got a question popping up in my head that could be a game changer in this investigation. One that probably Dr. Villarroel and other astronomers might know the answer. And the question is, are there in the world, probably USA, Australia, or Europe, any archived telescope data contemporary from the same period from Dr. Villarroel's research that could also be tested for transient phenomena? That could really be breakthrough for other teams of astronomers to test different data sets. Hoping you will find a way to pinpoint possible archives like this one anywhere else in the world and perhaps protecting them from being destroyed. I kindly thank you for your attention.
That is such a good question, and I wish I'd asked Beatrice that when I did the interview. I suspect there are plates, not necessarily from the exact moment, because, of course, where it worked for Beatrice was that at a particular point in time, on a particular day, in a period of around about 30 minutes, the object was there and gone the next. So I'd be really surprised if the objects are the same objects in that same time period on other glass plates around the world. But yes, there are glass plates. In fact, I've spoken to people here in Australia who've told me that there is an enormous collection of glass photographic plates, much of which have not yet been digitised because we can't afford the cost of digitisation. One of the reasons why Beatrice could do the project that she could do is because the Palomar survey plates were digitised and they were easily accessible. I think that's a really good idea. I'll ask Beatrice and find out whether there are other data sources that could be used, perhaps not necessarily to verify her particular transients, but whether it could be verified that at that particular point in history, someone else was recording on photographic plates the same kinds of transient objects at geosynchronous altitude. I mean, the allegations really are quite extraordinary that have been made on the data sets provided by Dr. Villarroel and her team. It implies very strongly, statistically very highly, that there is something technological, something constructed with a highly mirrored, reflective, specular surface 42,000 kilometres from Earth in geosynchronous orbit. And it was there in the 1950s before humans developed space rockets that could send objects into space. So it's a pretty cool mystery, and yes, I agree, that would be a fascinating way to try and verify it. It would also be a good example of what we call repeatability, part of the scientific method.
We already know stuff, but let's see. It's the same thing.
G'day and welcome back to Reality Check. I'm your host, Ross Coulthart, and this week we're looking at one of the most intriguing UAP videos ever. Aguadilla, April 25th, 2013, approximately 9:20 p.m. local time.
I should say there is a secret base in Puerto UFO base in Puerto Rico. I've heard a lot of different stuff on it. So.
Time, Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, near Rafael Hernandez Airport. A U.S. Customs and Border Protection aircraft using infrared FLIR, forward-looking infrared cameras, detects an unidentified object approaching from the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of this whole saga because there are two experts who are going to talk to me all about it today. One of them is filmmaker Darcy Weir, and he's just been to Puerto Rico with Andy Marcial, who was his colleague investigating on the ground there, not just the Aguadillas.
I heard about a base, underwater base there 30 years ago in Puerto Rico, and a lot of people have seen a lot of stuff, UFOs, etc.
But a whole lot of stories about UAP sightings in Puerto Rico. But because of the expertise we need to talk about new debunking of the Aguadilla video, I've brought in also Dave Fauch, who is a forward-looking infrared expert. And he's going to tell us why the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the Pentagon's UFO office, may or may not be right with its finding that these objects, or object that was seen in 2013, were supposedly sky lanterns. Gentlemen, welcome to Reality Check, and I'm looking forward to talking about what is probably, I think, one of the most important UFO sightings of recent decades.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to be here to talk about it.
So, Darcy, paint us a picture. Talk me through.
It might just be me, but I went out. If there was honesty, if you see by the human eye or just infrared, even.
Dealer incident.
So, I came across this video thanks to my friend Andy Marcial, who you've done an investigation over Arizona with, and the Department of Homeland Security footage or videos that were leaked through, I believe it's Bob, who formerly worked for that agency. And
anybody that's been around government secret stuff, there's a designation for a superior guy. It's called Bob. Okay, people need to know that. This includes Area 51, other places where secret programs are. Yeah, the guy in charge, his name is Bob. That's not his real name. That's just a name that's designated to them. So it's not the real name.
he and I became friends in 2023 when I was working on a story called Transmedium, studying UAP encounters or USO encounters around bodies of water around the world, and just kind of trying to get to the bottom of what this whole USO phenomenon is about, and if the U.S. Navy is very aware, possibly even has a secret program called the Fast Mover Program, where they're cataloging and researching this stuff very secretly. So Andy brought up the Aguadilla footage from 2013, this incident where, again, Department of Homeland Security via CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, had recorded, not just for like 10 seconds or 20 or 15 seconds, like the Tic Tac footage.
You can see this thing flipping around. You see this flipping, moving, all different. It also looks like he's putting on a show, actually, for this infrared thermal camera.
Or, you know, the gimbal or go fast footage, very short clips. This video that was recorded with a very expensive, you know, multi-million-dollar FLIR camera system was just under 4 minutes. So there's a lot of data to look at. There's a lot of information, a lot of things going on in this video for you to analyze, any analyst, really. And I heard through a researcher named Jorge Martin, who lives in Puerto Rico and has been a very...
Just say a normal human object cannot move like that with aerodynamics and stuff like that. A normal human craft would blow up and disintegrate, move it all tumbling like that. Human aircraft cannot do that. Now, our re-engineered stuff, that's different. I don't know.
Very proclaimed researcher in the field of ufology for over 40 years now.
Yes, ufology.
That he knew the leaker of that Agua Dia footage. So I made it my mission to fly to Puerto Rico with Andy, and as a team, we were going to interview the leaker and find out the backstory of how this footage came to the public and what happened after it came to the public. Just details that people might not have heard of before, you know? And
can I ask you this? Is it the position of the source, the primary leaker, and the people that were involved in the... Because I know he's not the actual person who was on the plane at the time who saw the object, but do all of these Customs Border Protection people believe to this day that the object that they saw was indeed anomalous?
Yeah, so the individual who was the FLIR camera operator on the plane, the CBP plane that was in the air tracking this object, they informed this CBP leaker who was on the ground and walked onto the plane after they came back that there was this anomalous object in the footage that they had never seen before. And many of them in that agency and around that time were calling it a disc. They were calling it some kind of anomalous object that flew like a disc or an almond-shaped object.
So let me set the scene before we go any further. To me, when I first saw the video, it looks extraordinary because the object appears to be speeding up. It seems at times to be maneuvering in and around trees and buildings on the ground near the San Rafael airport. And then perhaps the most interesting point is when it gets out into the ocean and it appears, at least to my eyes, to be going underwater. And it doesn't discernibly slow when it hits the water. We'll run video footage of what we're talking about here over this image.
Yeah, it's like I say, they have a slipstream effect where it's like it creates like a field around it where you just go through that just like it's air. You know, it just goes right through water, and even in space, there's a slipstream type of thing around a field around it where you go through matter and stuff like that, and go as fast as it wants, beyond light speed, or go from here to there to follow across the universe or multiverse.
Imagery, but it is extraordinary. It appears to suggest something anomalous. Just to set the scene, though, in March this year, 20th of March 2025, ARROW, the Pentagon's UFO/UAP investigation office, declared with high confidence that the objects shown in the Agua Dia video did not exhibit anomalous behavior or transmedium capabilities. ARROW assesses moderate confidence that the objects were a pair of sky lanterns. Gentlemen, do we owe ARROW, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, Tim Phillips, do we owe them a grovelling apology for the fact that we've got it all wrong all this time?
Absolutely not.
Dave?
They owe us an apology for giving that explanation for what the object is.
Agreed. So, working with these systems on a daily basis, the first thing you want to do is rule out some kind of prosaic explanation. The bird, the plane, the balloon, mylar balloon, the sky lantern, any of these things, which I could do easily be just by doing tests in our backyard, because I work on these systems and I can just replicate, through experiments. and I did not find anything that matched up to this thermal signature.
So, Darcy, maybe talk me through why you think the object is anomalous.
Right. So, to give a bit more context, before they even started recording that video, they apparently had radar tracking of some kind of object coming from the ocean. So, people within CBP were informing the pilots to look around for something. The pilots couldn't see anything with their naked eye. None of the personnel on board except for the FLIR camera operator, which this is a common characteristic of UAP or UFOs, that they can remain cloaked to the human eye. But in this far light, forward-looking infrared light spectrum, our camera technology can pick them up. And so when they did pick up this object, it was already starting to fly towards the Rafael Hernandez International Airport on the west coast of Puerto Rico.
But crucially, they saw the object coming in from the ocean, not from the northwest, as has been suggested by some people.
That's right. And they only started recording once the FLIR camera operator was able to actually start tracking it himself with the technology. So again, not with the naked eye. Then it flies in a circle. So the weird thing is that if it were a balloon, it would flutter, it would oscillate quite a bit, and it would come probably from the ocean. No, I don't think so. It would actually blow away wherever the wind is blowing. In the west, I believe the wind does come off of the ocean. This object flew in a circle and then went towards the ocean, which is going against the wind, in my opinion.
Dave, do you agree with this so far?
Yes. Again, I'm like, I analyzed the FLIR videos in their essence. I don't know so much of the backstory, but I'll take, his word for it. I'm just looking at the FLIR video from what I see from daily basis. I don't really get into the analysis of, trajectory and parallax and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure that Darcy knows what he's talking about.
Okay, so Darcy, the official line, I know Dr. John Kozlowski, when he gave evidence late last year to the Congress, he initially tipped that he thought it was either a balloon or sky lanterns. And I suspect that idea came from this report, which was written by a former Commodore in the Argentine Air Force called Ruben Leanza, who was the head of the Argentine Air Force's Center for Aerospace Identification. And he made the declaration that essentially everything that you see is...
Those are government debuggers no matter what country. Those are government debuggers that tell a bunch of BS all the time.
Consistent with it not being a self-propelled object, essentially a wind-blown object. And he, the thing that really got me most of all...
Winds cannot make an object go that fast. Tornadoes over here, see, of course, that's a bit
was he did some research about what conceivably could explain how the objects split into two after they come out of the ocean. And he found these heart-shaped balloons, which are released from a resort routinely, or were at the time released routinely.
They can only float up and they can only move very slowly. You see those in China, Japan, and stuff like that, lanterns type things. They cannot move fast or anything like that. It's complete bullshit. So,
to the northwest, or from the northwest, and it was consistent, he argues, with the idea of the wind blowing these heart-shaped balloons, which were often released. He applies the Occam's razor principle. He spoke to the company that does these wedding events on the beach, and he admitted that in the time period, it certainly was consistent with the time period when these heart-shaped balloons were being released. And so the explanation that he offered, and I noticed Arrow picked up on it as well, is that these were two heart-shaped balloons tied together, just drifting with the wind from the northwest, floating across the airport, and that what appeared to be going into the ocean, the explanation that Arrow offered and that Ruben offered, but Arrow particularly, is, and this is where you come in, Dave, because the colour temperature of the objects, presumably sky lanterns, matched the colour temperature of the ocean, and I don't know how that could conceivably be the case, because presumably a sky lantern's operating with some kind of a light or a burner of some kind. Surely that would emit an infrared signal. Because of that, they argue, Arrow argues, that this was just two balloons joined together and that they separated at the point where you see them supposedly emerge from the ocean. They never did emerge from the ocean. They were actually floating above the ocean. End of story. All resolved. Case closed. Aguadilla, one of the most profound and interesting UAP videos of recent time, was in fact debunked. Are they wrong? Explain to me why they're wrong.
Okay, let's start off by talking about balloons. I printed out a little something here, just in anticipation of this. This, on the top side, you'll see, like a daylight camera, you can see a balloon that's got red, white, blue, and a balloon at the bottom, which is a latex balloon. So mylar balloon on the top, latex on the bottom. You can see in the infrared image that the mylar is showing a whole bunch of different, blacks and whites. It's reflecting its scene like floating mirrors, I call them. Down here, that latex balloon has essentially disappeared because infrared looks through a latex balloon. As far as sky lanterns, I've taken a thermographer that I have here, and I've recorded them. I actually bought a sky lantern and I tethered it to the ground in my driveway and I recorded it to get an idea of what kind of thermal signature it would put off, and it's nothing like this. It's highly inconsistent of anything they're referring to. So that's my assessment.
To add to that, I would say that if they were two balloons kind of tied together by string, we would see two balloons for the whole 3 minutes before it goes to the ocean. But instead, we see one object for 3 minutes straight, and only once it goes towards the ocean, as if it realizes it's being tracked by the CBP, and then splits and disappears from their tracking, that's where they come up with the theory that it's either two sky lanterns or two balloons. And I know that... Sorry?
Do you think the object went underwater?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Because, it seemed to do that. We have other footage that shows UAPs or USOs, going in and out of the water historically. So we have like the 2019 footage. What is that? The USS Omaha footage, which, Jeremy Corbell was the leaker of. You also have...
They know that sometimes UFOs, they do that. Like in the sky, they communicate. It's like how in ancient times, the Romans and stuff used lights and fires, and Indians, Indian tribes did that as well. They put that in our DNA to learn this stuff and everything. I wonder if they would do that to try and communicate, or if they even think of that or not.
Have another piece of footage that came out in 2021 from DHS.
Yeah, UFOs played it. They know when humans are watching them. They know that. ETs and HI, they know that. And, if it's our stuff that we're using, there are ways that we're to know, of course, that we're to know that they're watching us, same with
where a weird UAP is rotating just coming out of the water. So, and that's in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico has a history of objects entering and exiting the water by the citizens there. And in this case, the CBP caught it, connected to DHS, it was reported, and in 2023, as I show in my investigation, DHS themselves released a report initially saying that this was an authentic UAP, among other UAP videos that they've scrutinized, analyzed, and these are intelligent people. They're in charge of securing borders and securing the coasts of the United States of America. They have state-of-the-art equipment that's worth millions of dollars that our friend Dave Fulch here works on a daily basis. And these gentlemen, when they file these UAP videos into a WTF folder, they're serious. They don't understand what this is.
It pisses me off when people have to use this, or not. It's like these idiots they use UAP because that's what they call it now. I don't give a fuck. The U.S. government changes the acronym all the time for UFO. It changes UAP. They call it something else for a while. Then people got wise that it was UFOs and everything. It pisses me off when people try to act smart and call it UAP and stuff like that.
So they call it anomalous, hence a UAP.
It's UFO. What is it? God, it pisses me off. Everyone's talking about calling it sky lanterns, balloons, anything but a UFO. And you can... What? Father, see two birds and... shape a beacon, that beak. God, it pisses me off.
I actually agree with you, but I'm interested in going through the exercise. I think at times when some people who want to believe in the phenomenon look at something, they immediately default to an assumption that it must be anomalous. And I think the interesting thing is that on the other side, the people who are desperate to debunk the phenomenon, they seize on the first available prosaic explanation that might conceivably explain it.
Well, the same thing is that Congress now has it where they know about the secret stuff, and they're a bunch of criminals themselves. Keeping this stuff a secret, and there's human trafficking happening with, people with psionics, psychic abilities. There's a human trafficking thing, and you have people that can make money off these defense contractors and these exotic tech, or magic. It's not technology, it's magic type of stuff. And they don't want people to know about either. Some of them are just going to put stock into these defense contractors that's making this exotic tech magic stuff to keep this stuff a secret. I mean, like it's been said, the world economy would just tank, and it should tank because, there'd be no reason to have oil, no reason for gas, no reason to have nuclear type of fuels. And honestly, a lot of this stuff, this tech or magic that we have would also put religion out of commission as well. So there's a lot of reasons, and people in Congress, they just put stocks into these companies, these contractors that are making reverse engineered stuff, and make money off it. They just help keep it a secret. They don't care about the criminal element and keep this stuff a secret either.
And bang it together as a report, and that's the end of the story. I think in this case, I do err, and I've reached my own view on this by reading all of the reports. I do err to the idea that what has happened is the Pentagon's UFO Investigation Office has seized on the first remotely plausible prosaic explanation to try and explain this away as not anomalous, as prosaically explainable. Dave, let's ask you, what do you think? I mean, obviously, for me, the suggestion was made in the original SCU, Scientific Coalition for the Study of UAP report, which I thought was a very well put together report, that essentially the object changed course, it changed speed, it did appear superficially.
The thing is with UAP, it's an aerial phenomena. UFO is object. There's a difference between the two. That's the reason that I get pissed off about this. Because they're not doing it right. They try to act smart and stuff. I've been doing this for decades. These guys have just been doing it for a small while.
To be operating intelligently, moving intelligently. And the kicker for me, the absolute killer, was when you see it allegedly hit the water. I mean, certainly with my grade 1 eyeballs, I see something that appears to be going underwater. And then the weirdest thing is when it comes out of the water, it does appear to separate into two identically sized objects to the first object. So it's not diminishing in size as a result of splitting in size. What's your perspective on what you see as someone who understands forward-looking infrared imagery, which is what the plane was using?
To backtrack a little bit, I think your articulation of the two different polarities to believing, it could be a prosaic explanation or it could be just, it has to be alien life form. I think you did a fantastic job explaining that. I don't know where I fall. I just look at the videos. I'm probably leaning more towards an anomalous kind of thing. But as far as what was your last segment you were saying there?
I'm particularly interested in whether you agree that the object went into the water. Are you able to reach a conclusion on whether the object entered the water?
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm full of thoughts here. So I'm thinking a lot of people were saying it's got to be some kind of artifact of the camera, or it's got to be some kind of reflection off the water. They're explaining it like that.
Some people are desperate to say it's not UFOs. What it is, whether it's human-made or non-human, that's a different question. Because we have stuff as well, Russians, Chinese, stuff like that have their stuff and everything. They have their own bases and everything. And it's called desperation. It's what so-called scientists, so-called experts, whatever. They'll say, do anything, put out any type of lie, say it's a rubber duck, or whatever, and whatever. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. Let's see, this is pretty much it, isn't it? Infrared show on the internet. But sky lanterns, let's go here. Yeah, and it did.
Sky lanterns, as I understand it, they're a semi-rigid structure made largely of paper more often than not, and they have some kind of a support in which at the bottom you put a candle or some kind of burner that is emitting hot air that makes the object rise. That's a heat source. You'd surely see a heat source on an infrared camera, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Do you see anything consistent with a sky lantern heat source, like a small candle, on the forward-looking infrared that you see?
Not at all. It would show that heat source underneath, and there would be a difference in between the thermal signature of the paper being filled with a hot air, kind of like a mini hot air balloon, but you're definitely going to see the difference between that candle burning, hanging from its little wire suspension, and then the paper being illuminated. You're going to see gradients of black and white.
I would also say it's typical to see a sky, like a sky lantern to rise only, and this thing is going towards the ocean, which is a colder source, right? How is that even possible? How do they explain that? They don't.
You're absolutely right, and I'm so pleased you've said that. That is true. I mean, I don't understand how they can conclude, Dave and Darcy, I don't know how they can conclude, as they do in the Arrow report, that the colour temperature of the object is the same colour temperature as the sea, and that's why it disappears at the point where it looks like it's going into the ocean. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, I could understand that if it were a bird, which we would see the silhouette and shape of a bird or two birds. And I would understand it if it were actually a mylar balloon, not a latex. But if they went with the mylar balloon explanation, perhaps when it goes over the ocean, the air within inside of the object cools down to the same temperature as the ocean. And then the MX-15 system, which is what we think this FLIR camera was, gets tricked and thinks it's following two objects.
I want to read you the conclusion that's made by Arrow, which is on the colour temperature. They assess with moderate confidence that the objects depicted in the video are sky lanterns. It's common practice for hotels and resorts in the area to release sky lanterns during celebrations. And he said, quote, IR signatures can appear to vanish when the thermal contrast between the object, presumably a sky lantern, and the background becomes indistinguishable. The objects seem to disappear shortly after the ocean appears in the background. The objects did not enter the water, Arrow says categorically. Rather, the sensor could not distinguish the objects from their environment due to a lack of thermal contrast between them and the ocean. Now, what Darcy and I have been discussing is, if you've got a flame inside a sky lantern, however you try and interpret that, that's going to be hotter, surely, than the background ocean, isn't it?
Oh, of course. A default for the infrared cameras is going to be an auto gain, auto level. So when you change from one scene to another, it's going to jack up the gains and levels and adjust accordingly. So if you have a thermal...
About your new film, which in all of this is featured in, by the way, and will, with your permission, use bits of your film in this, you and Andy travelled to Puerto Rico to essentially look at the phenomenon, particularly of underwater submerged objects or craft that appear to operate transmedium in and around Puerto Rico. What did you find?
Well, we found a lot. We found...
What the fuck? I told you quiet. Anyways, I know for decades, over 30 years, that and other people, the native people there in Puerto Rico, they have all seen UFOs go in and out of this like lake, big pond type area, go in and out and just go out of the ocean. The U.S. military as well has, a place around there, this area as well. There's military traffic and stuff like that. So obviously this is a place that the U.S. and ETs are doing stuff. This stuff that I know about for decades. And the native people there in Puerto Rico, I've seen stuff. There's photographs and stuff out there. So.
Found in this first sort of storytelling that I've done once I got back from Puerto Rico, the Agua Dia footage is incredible. It seems to be absolutely an object that many of the staff at CBP on the ground at the Rafael Hernandez International Airport in the Agua Dia area are very aware of. And after that footage came out, was leaked, the FBI was involved. They were investigating this leak, and they shut down access very quickly between the air branch of CBP personnel to other CBP personnel. I'm assuming like ocean-based or ground-based CBP. So the leaker was not allowed to ever go on to a craft and look at footage again, or go into areas where he could view this stuff on his friend's computer who works there.
I do believe people should be executed for keeping this stuff a secret. I do. It pisses me off because they only want to have this knowledge about this type of propulsion, this magic, the trafficking. They don't want people to know about the psionic human trafficking. No, they don't want people to know about all the illegal activity that's being done and everything. And so it pisses me off because they want it for weaponization purposes, and they want to control all the stuff about psychic ESP abilities, remote viewing. They want people enslaved. They want people to be a slave to government stuff, to technology. They don't want normal people to know the truth and have access to this sort of go-off world. They want people to be enslaved. Is what the U.S. government and other governments, etc. want.
And caught this footage.
So is it your suspicion then that the reason for the crackdown is because CBP and perhaps other government agencies were embarrassed by the fact of this leak because it did appear to show something anomalous? Is that your view?
Absolutely. I would say the footage is remarkable because it's almost 4 minutes long. Like I said, the Tic Tac, the Go Fast, the gimbal, these are short clips, and we hear about there being more of it, but the public hasn't been able to scrutinize that much all at one time. And this leak is a big piece of data. It's a big piece of footage that we're able to scrutinize and, try to figure out what it is. I think that's embarrassing for them to have that out in the public in the wild. And I think what's also embarrassing for them is that no one has a uniform explanation that can truly debunk it. Like I said, Sean Kirkpatrick, he did a analysis on a NOVA program earlier this year with the help of Joshua Semeter, who was part of the NASA UAP debunk panel from 2024. And they said it was categorically two birds. And when they, went to the ocean, that the sensor saw it cool, the birds cool down to the temperature of the ocean heat and temperature, and then the sensor lost it. Then you've got Tim, the director of Aero, in I think the end of 2024, November 19th, explaining it as two balloons. And then you've got the official Aero report saying that it's sky lanterns. What's going on, guys? Why can't you get your story straight?
People thought with the Trump administration that truth would get out. I said no. I don't see that happening in the great it would, but they're just as criminal as the Biden and other administration. You have criminals in the government, whether that's the Epstein or JFK, RFK, all sort of stuff. The government lies to people all the time. And stuff. I think people that are keeping a secret of all the crimes that's happening with UFOs, UFO abductions should be executed. All these people, I think, should be executed and stuff like that, keeping this stuff a secret, because there's a lot of crime. A lot of crimes are being committed to keep this stuff going.
If you're going to debunk this. So I just found the reaction from the DoD and the intelligence agencies afterwards, like in the past, let's say 6 months, quite remarkable. And then Puerto Rico, as an island that has a history of anomalies taking place, even back to the days of Christopher Columbus until now, every year people are saying that they're seeing anomalies around the island. And it's just going unacknowledged. It's very overlooked, and I think with my research, with the help of Andy Marciel and people like Dave Fulch, where we're trying to scrutinize this stuff in like scientific and logical terms, there's got to be something happening around the island in the water that is highly anomalous. And I feel like
I think these guys might be a little behind some of the rest of us, or some of us have known for decades about this. Let me see. I want to get to. Is there a video? Here, let me get to this.
he said before he even saw that video, he had seen objects himself around Puerto Rico, as well as heard fishermen's reports. And, obviously one of the main ways to put food on the table there as a Puerto Rican is to fish. You're surrounded by the ocean in the middle of it. So the reports he got from fishermen were that there were all kinds of objects entering and exiting the ocean, especially by the airport there on the West Coast. Those fishermen don't fish there anymore. So he took reports like this very seriously. And when he finally got this leaked footage, it was kind of just the cherry on top of it all for him. So that's
why don't the fishermen fish there anymore?
Because they're scared. They're freaked out about what's off the coast there, near the beach that's right there by Rafael Hernandez International Airport. Apparently they see a lot of things at night.
So there's a couple of excerpts in your film where the fishermen seem to have recorded on mobile phones weird blue lights, but the one thing that blew me away was, there's no other way to describe it. It looks like something is intelligently moving through the water, semi-illuminated, and it looks, dare I say, semi-humanoid.
It does. It has the silhouette of, a round head and shoulders and, a torso and then legs hanging from that. I've had skeptics say that, that's just a scuba diver. But I've been scuba diving since I was 15 years old. I've got a PADI diving license. I've been all around the world in the ocean. I've been in Australia on the Great Barrier Reef there. And you wear a tank and you wear a respirator and a CBD, and you are constantly releasing bubble trails that rise to the surface. In this video, this whole clip, if people find it, which we featured and enhanced, you don't see any bubbles coming to the surface, and through the light, you don't even see the shadow of bubbles as if they would be usually coming from the mouth area of the head of somebody that's submerged. So that was highly odd to me.
What did the fishermen think they were seeing?
Something anomalous. You can even hear it in their voice. They're saying, look at this. What is this here? What is this here? Is that something in the water? What is that? They're literally saying something like that with a frightened voice.
They're freaked out.
Yeah, and I actually have kept in touch with Jorge Martin, who's a journalist that lives there, and he found the source of that video, and I'm trying to save up some money or find funding to go back and meet that person and interview them how they recorded that video.
I really actually commend, by the way, Darcy, the fact that you and Andy went to Puerto Rico and went.
I want to see other stuff Puerto Rico here. Let's see. And I might not be able to do it on YouTube. I'd have to get, because do copyright crap that YouTube has. There's more reason for more people to go elsewhere. This History Channel, I get copyright. I don't know if I give a shit. I don't know. UFO. Why is anyone believing this bullshit he puts out? He works for the Pentagon. He puts out this information. Don't believe that son of a bitch. What he says. It was 10 years ago. This is from Associated Press, Puerto Rico UFO Science Media Cause. Alienque, Part 2, Alienque, Part 2, closed. What is this vacation about? Why did they close it?
Un compañero de trabajo mío hace unos meses atrás en la autopista vio unas luces en el cielo iluminándose. Entonces, sé qué es lo que está pasando. El gobierno está ocultando algo aquí que no deja que uno pase para allá adentro.
Muchos vecinos de las áreas cercanas al lugar están viendo en las noches objetos no identificados tipo platillos voladores de gran tamaño entrar y salir de este lugar e incluso recoger aparentemente por unos haces de luz que emanan de estas naves criaturas extrañas que suben, entonces parten de nuevo y desaparecen aquí entre la espesura de la selva del yunque. ¿Qué está ocurriendo? No sabemos, pero nos llama mucho la atención que mientras esto ocurre por un lado, por otro lado las autoridades cierran el yunque al público con la excusa de la alegada carretera.
Let's see. I heard stories about UFOs in the ocean 10 years ago, 5 years ago here. They're hiding in the trench of Puerto Rico. It's like a movie in the abyss. Let's see. This is what people are saying here. I saw a silver saucer shaped UFO in the area when I was a kid. I had been in the car with my family. It was as clear as day as it could be. And I remember not wanting to tell anyone else who was in the car with me. Yeah, I know what that's like. Because I had been so shocked by it. It's weird how federal agents sometimes ask you for your ID for entry Alienque. For they have a base in there. They have a base there. Let's see, there's always been activity. There's always been activity top of the mountains, but the fact that parts of Alienque have been closed is very unusual. Let's see here. It's been 30 years since my high school classmates, I want to do the whole thing. It's been 30 years since my high school classmates from Los Piedras spent most chilly and dark nights of our lives. I've been away from Puerto Rico for many years, but I remember as through yesterday, everything was as clear as it's happening at that moment. In this same area, we were parking our cars, arriving at about 11 at night. We finished parking and heard a woman scream. There were 5, 6 of us. Her friend who was armed policeman, and another who was a black belt karate, and others whose names I don't want to mention. When we arrived, we were surprised by a gigantic gorilla. Or so it seemed to us, immense, like 1 ton in weight, black, about 5 feet away from us. We ran, jumped from side to side, from tree to tree. The funny thing was that it didn't move a leaf. It looked like a gigantic cat. My arm received a slap, and that flew about 6 feet high. We tried to leave the place, but we had to stay the whole time. Night until you see the sunrise, some shadows bothered us all at night. Shadows to be Sasquatches around were harassing or something. Afterward, we returned several times to take pictures of these shadows, but we were never able to obtain evidence about what I'm telling. But I lived it, and I'll keep a dark memory of me for the rest of my life. Let's see, let's play. Prehistoric volcano. Valley remains extremely hard because it was cooked inside. Okay, that's going nowhere. Let's see here. That's like the same one. Triangle. I have to do this on off of shit too because these idiots that run YouTube let's see this.
What does the government really know about aliens and UFOs? What's the truth about all those drone sightings over New Jersey last year? Remember that? Well, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just told the Pod Force One podcast that the truth may be out there. Take a look.
So do you believe that there could be aliens?
I honestly, like, my personal belief, I have my own views and opinions.
Right.
In this role, I got to be careful with what I share. I'm still going through and looking through what do we know and what is it that we don't know.
And the New Jersey, the strange objects over New Jersey were drones.
I still have a lot of questions around that.
No, they're not all drones. Like I said, for those that know, I mean, also, the stuff that we have can make stuff look like drones. There's non-human intelligence craft that can make themselves look like drones, and they're not drones. So, a lot of this was a government scam. It was a scam by the government, or world governments. This is happening around the world. Not just there in New Jersey. Those are lies by media and whoever else to keep this stuff a secret. This is happening around the world. You know, China, Russia, Australia. I mean, this is happening, here in California, other parts of the United States. It wasn't just New Jersey. But this orchestration to, clamp down on civilians using drones. It was all a fucking scam and everything.
I've heard what the public official line is. I just personally still have a lot of questions that are unanswered.
I think we all have a lot of questions. Remember, in January, the White House said there was nothing nefarious about the New Jersey drone sighting. So here's the question. What's the truth? Well, we're going to ask former Pentagon UFO investigator Lou Elizondo to get to it. So, Lou, good to see you. What does Tulsi Gabbard know that we all don't know?
She knows what she can't say.
Well, I think it's important to note that Tulsi Gabbard is a very seasoned official. She cut her teeth as a combat veteran and also formerly a field grade officer. So she's not new to the world of intelligence, and I think what she's doing is exactly her due diligence. Before she makes a public statement, she wants to make sure she speaks to all of the 16 intelligence agencies, try to remove all the stovepipes as she can, and really get to the truth of the matter. The bottom line is, look, whenever you admit to the American public that we don't have complete aerodomain awareness of our skies, we don't know what.
Michelle for the government. Don't trust these sons of bitches for the government. They're lying, fucking, criminals. They're bullshitters. Don't ever believe any of the bullshit that they put out with that. I mean, they don't do anything honestly.
and it will get extremely close to the inner planets, like, for example, Jupiter, Mars, or Venus. It will arrive closest to the sun when the Earth is on the opposite side, so we won't be able to look at it. And that's the point where a spacecraft would make a maneuver to slow down. And it's coming from the direction of the Milky Way galaxy, the center of the Milky Way galaxy, where the sky is very crowded with stars. So that's why it took a while to notice it. And altogether, the chance of this trajectory is less than 0.2% to be aligned with the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, less than 1 part in 20,000 to arrive so close to the other planets. And one wonders, could it be a design trajectory? And I'm not saying that we know, but I'm saying that we need to collect more data to figure out the nature of this object. And if it turns out to be a comet, if it's surrounded by a beautiful cometary tail that is glowing in the sunlight as it gets closer to the sun, so be it. But from now on, the Rubin Observatory in Chile will discover a new interstellar object every few months. And my point is, we should check whether any of these objects might be technological in origin, because it's a security risk to Earth.
Right. How do you check that? So it's interesting you mentioned about the trail that might indicate it's a comet. What would be the signs that it's not a comet?
Well, so I suggest first establishing a scale of risk from interstellar objects, similar to the Richter scale for the risk from earthquakes. A 0 would mean that we identify a beautiful tail and it looks just like a regular comet. We can infer the composition of the tail. It's similar to comets. A 10 would mean that the object maneuvers in ways that cannot be explained by the force of gravity, that there must be an engine in it, or it has an unusual shape, or it has artificial lights. And there should be an organization that decides whether an incoming object could be a risk, because we talk a lot about existential risks from artificial intelligence, from climate change, from an asteroid that may impact the Earth, but we don't talk at all about the possibility of alien tech. And I think we should take it into consideration, because we sent out spacecraft that would leave the solar system.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So it is estimated to be about 12 miles long, okay? You, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to use NASA's Juno spacecraft to intercept the path of that. It has instruments that could study it. It could change the trajectory of the orbit. Can you explain a little bit more how this would work?
Yeah, so we should take advantage of the fact that it comes so close to Jupiter. It's quite amazing. If you look at Jupiter's orbit, it just gets to the point where 3I Atlas will be on the 16th of March 2026. And I calculated that if we give a small kick to Juno of 2.6 kilometers per second, just around the time when NASA was thinking of just sinking it into Jupiter, because it's the end of the mission. And I'm saying, instead of letting it dive into Jupiter, just kick it out away from Jupiter, then with the right orientation, it will actually intercept the path of 3I Atlas. And it's an amazing opportunity for us to learn much more about this object, because we can't launch any rocket from Earth that would intercept this object. It's moving too fast relative to Earth, in the opposite direction of the motion of Earth around the Sun.
You wrote that this 3I Atlas is a technological artifact. It could be evidence of the dark forest hypothesis. What is that?
That's one of the solutions to Fermi's paradox, which is the question, where is everybody? And of course, it's possible that aliens are out there, but they are worried about predators, and therefore they are silent, as if they are in a dark forest. And if they see a civilization like ours, a young technological civilization that gets more powerful over time, and they are listening to us, they might send...
questions. I'm way above this guy. I'm way out there. Full box. Way out there league on that shit.
In the 1970s,
Puerto Rico experienced an astonishing surge in UFO sightings, captivating both locals and experts alike. Witnesses reported triangular crafts zipping across the sky and bizarre creatures lurking in secluded areas. Among the most notable events occurred in 1977, when multiple residents narrated encounters with small humanoid figures. The military intervened, claiming an investigation while keeping details under wraps, leading to rampant speculation. Today, these incidents remain unsolved, and the question lingers: what truly happened in the skies of Puerto Rico? Could this wave of sightings hint at something far beyond our understanding?
Here's Puerto Rico, April 13th. This is from UFO Institute. Shout out.
Do you see that?
UFO Institute.
Blue. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Oh my gosh.
Wow. The colors. It's like an ocean. Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's very beautiful.
Ocean water. Like UFO. This also. Wow, that's cool. Let's see here. Got super camera. Obviously it's not because it's short. So ZD. They like to put this stuff, they like to get copyright strike. Let's see. Let's 3 minutes 4 seconds. This is AD, so let's see here.
As far as UFO researchers are concerned, some of the most compelling video taken in outer space was recorded during NASA mission STS-80 in December 1996. During the Space Shuttle Columbia mission, astronaut Stuart Musgrave captured a number of strange events on camera, including slow-moving circular objects.
It really seems like the footage that we're looking at, the video footage of STS-80, clearly show what appear to be powered vehicles operating in low Earth orbit, clearly performing the way UFOs or extraterrestrial spacecraft are supposedly able to perform.
While NASA scientists dismiss these objects as ice particles, the incredible images have fascinated researchers, including aerospace engineer and digital imaging expert Dr. Mark Carlotto. After spending countless hours studying the footage, controlled.
A number of objects are seen just after sunrise. The conjecture by NASA, the explanation is that these are the result of particles that move from shadow into
those are not particles, those are UFOs. The thing with NASA is that they like to say that space debris or whatever. Usually, if this is seen from the ISS space station, they like to cut the feed so people can't see this. NASA also airbrushes a lot of this stuff out here. Let's see here.
sunlight and suddenly become illuminated. So they appear to the camera and then they move, and then if there's a thruster fire or some other action, they change direction.
Yeah.
However, NASA spokespersons do not comment on what's seen earlier in the video.
Here, we're looking at the Earth about a minute or so before the disks and the streaks appear. And we're looking at, as the camera zooms, we're looking at Puerto Rico. That's that bright blob that we see in the middle of the screen. As the camera zooms, the camera operator is moving around.
So there's like a secret, this might be a safe place where they have a secret installation around here, Puerto Rico or whatever. Lots of UFO stuff and everything. So you talk about U.S. military and extraterrestrials.
As if they're looking for something. And in a moment, we'll see something suddenly appear, almost literally out of nowhere. If we look at this event more closely, it leaves a trail or a wake behind it.
Well, it looks like it just came up. It's just about to leave to interstellar space.
And it happens very quickly. It's very unusual.
Looks like it's out.
In this particular map, we see Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and I will now overlay one of the frames of the video. See the object appearing and moving left to right. In 1/2 second, this object moves 340 miles, which is a speed of 680 miles per second. This object moves as fast as a bolt of lightning. There are no thunderstorms in the area. It is unlike any natural phenomenon that's known. And this object has never been mentioned by NASA or anyone that's talked about this video.
Is it possible that NASA has already captured footage of an extraterrestrial presence in outer space?
I need to be careful. It's always out here. Fuck YouTube does anything, but kick I don't have to worry about. So. This is 2 years ago. This goes down the ice like this is Puerto Rico. There's a lot of UFO activity. In Catalina Island, off Catalina Island, there's a UFO on the water base. In a different place on their place of those water bases. Off California, etc. Hawaii. Let's see. I want everybody to see this. Look at that. It's like, look at those things. Not squid, but those things underwater that we venomous in Australia. Jellyfish.
I don't know what this thing is.
See, let's go, moving
very slow.
It's been on a show for you. It knows you're watching. You know you're watching. Some of it is actually pretty funny. Sometimes it just, yeah. That's really awesome.
There's a plane coming behind next to it.
kids that would like is there's that. Let's see. Multi-fighter flight. Exercise of coaches described as clear sphere with cube. The cube on the inside the house flew into the fighter jets. There is no Google command, so otherwise. So that was it's kind of redundant, so stuff. Sometimes I do stuff on more stuff on Kick, but I have to worry about copyright bullshit.
En el 1999-2000, pues yo fui a investigar junto a mi señora esposa fallecida a Vieques a ver, porque yo notaba un ambiente extraño. O sea, en las comunicaciones que daba tanto el gobierno local como el gobierno federal y la Marina, había una serie de ambigüedades raras en cuanto a ciertos ángulos. Yo dije, no, aquí pasa algo más. Y fui a investigar allá. Vieques estaba siendo utilizada, la isla, para un programa secreto de contacto con naves no humanas y seres no humanos. Pero esto, la mayor parte de los viequenses lo habían visto. Y tú hablabas con los pescadores de todas partes de la isla. Veían esa nave, pero gigantesca, una cosa descomunal, tipo plato volador, bajar del cielo, una luz brillante, luces, pues le va a salir un tubo de luz, descendía hacia una laguna seca que hay allí, en el área restringida de los bombardeos, y se suspendía a unos 3 o 4 pies de altura del suelo. Cada vez que ocurría esto, los oficiales de alto nivel que estaban... Cantidad de información que hay aquí, Julio. Estaban allí viendo las prácticas.
There's our ride. There's our ride.
Wow. That thing, those stupid ETs, I swear to God. Those are like all some of them juvenile delinquents. That thing could have blown that helicopter to bits. Let's see here. Anyways, I think that's about it. I usually just for people to comment stuff, but so I go 3 hours. Anyways,